Dude. Hey, friends, what's up? Skip the music today because we literally have that much to get into. What's up, Eldric Stoneskin? Thanks for joining me on this King Bran Theory Iceberg that is not a theory iceberg. Hello.
Hi Dave, how are you, mate? Thanks for having me. Yeah, excited to talk about King Bran, the myths, the his story moving forward, and yeah, we've got some really good stuff here.
I call this Theory Iceberg because that's kind of the brand, if you will, the brand. However, this is more like a brand mythical archetype iceberg. It's basically, yeah, see, that didn't fit on the on the thumbnail, but what we're going to do is we're going to go through, it's a folklore iceberg. We're going to assemble Bran. Like, Bran is this creation of George Martin. He's cobbled together from all kinds of things. He's got the name that means the most different things in the story that we can identify. We're going to go to Irish and Celtic folklore. I've got some Narnia parallels. We've got Greek folklore. We've got all kinds of stuff. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to build a picture of King Bran. So we're kind of going back to the idea of the TV show. Let us know that Bran's going to be king at the end of the story, but of course it's not necessarily going to be the way it was on the show, as we know. So we're left to wonder, well, okay, King Bran is going to be some kind of final king at the end of the story. We don't even know if it's King of the Seven Kingdoms or something, but he's going to be the king in some sense. So what we're doing is we're going to go through all the foreshadowing scenes, which is basically his whole story is pointing in this direction of him being some sort of weirwood king, king of the land, fisher king, various things like that. A sun king returned at the end of the long night, and we're going to explain all that. So by the time you're done with the stream, you will have a great idea of why Bran is going to be king, has to be king, and what his job is. And there's a lot of cool occult symbolism and mythical imagery that we're going to bring to life. Like I said, we're going to go to a lot of external references. We're going to go deep. We're not going to do the quick summary. We're going to talk about Bran the Blessed and the Voyage of Bran what's his name? Bran Mac something. It's all flying out of my head. We got a lot of stuff.
There's a lot.
So in any case, there's some crazy stuff that we found with Bran. Some of it will be familiar to you if you've seen the King Bran videos. But of course, it's been like 4 years since we did that. So we're going to reapproach that. We got some new stuff, etc., etc. So basically, like I said, Bran is going to be a king in some sense, but it's just a matter of what kind of king he's going to be. He is the most magical character in the story. He's the one who is becoming a god man. Him and Euron, I guess you might say. They're very much parallel figures. He's some sort of uber greenseer with the destiny that has to do with resolving the problem of the others. Everyone agrees on that. That does seem obvious. Even the show, gave us that. His name means so many things. It's ridiculous.
It does, yeah.
Yes, Bran is going to be a king. We've had a couple artists draw Bran. This one's Bran on the Isle of Faces, and the other one is Bran sort of melting the Iron Throne into a weirwood tree, sort of a symbolic piece. So this is a cool piece, as I break the rule I just set, because you can see the sigils of all there's a squid above his head, and there's a wolf and some birds, and there's a stag. So the different houses are sort of hidden in the tree here. Bran is the king of the land and king of Westeros. It starts with the idea of Bran as the sun king, doesn't it, Eldric?
It does. He does. He's the sweet summer child. He's the summer king. King Bran is a very interesting character. I know you've said before, Beric might be the one with the most heavy symbolism and most heavily drawn upon. Bran might be an equal first. As we went through it, there is a lot. And he is our summer king that will end the winter and bring back the summer, and that's what he seems to be being set up for, even down to the fact his direwolf, summer, he's the green boy, the green king.
So the wolves' names really are important. Like Ghost, his ghost is gonna be in his wolf, and he's gonna come back and be a ghost man, so his name is Ghost. Robb's got the gray wind, and he's literally, Robb is like a wind. He is like a storm wind. He blows through Westeros and then disappears quickly. He's trying to get his father's sword, which is smoke dark, almost black, same color as his wolf, smoke dark. So there's a certain synergy there. But yeah, Summer. The wolf's name is Summer, and Bran is the Sun King. And like the whole plot of the story in miniature is kind of Bran and the Summer Wolf hiding in the Cave of Night. The White Wolf ran from it, racing toward the Cave of Night where the sun had hidden. On starless nights, the great cliff was as black as stone, a darkness towering high above the wide world, but when the moon came out, it shimmered pale and icy as a frozen stream. The wolf's pelt was thick and shaggy, but when the wind blew along the ice, no fur could keep the chill out. On the other side, the wind was colder still. The wolf sensed that was where his brother was, the gray brother who smelled of summer. So it's not just the name, like, literally the wolf smells like summer to the other wolves. I thought that was cute.
Yeah, absolutely. And even the fact that he first names his direwolf Summer after waking up from his coma dream, when he gets told that you need to survive because the winter is coming and you need to be present to bring back the summer. And as soon as he wakes up, he sees the fiery golden eyes of his direwolf. Bran touched his forehead between his eyes. The place where the crow had pecked him was still burning, but there was nothing there. No blood, no wound. A pair of yellow eyes looked into his own, shining like the sun. The window was open and it was cold in the room, but the warmth that came off the wolf enfolded him like a hot bath. His pup, Bran realized, or was it? He was so big now. It reached out to pet him, his hand trembling like a leaf. When his brother Rob burst into the room, breathless from his dash up the tower steps, the direwolf was licking Bran's face. Bran looked up calmly. His name is Summer, he said. So we've got, golden eyes shining like the sun, and he even feels the warmth emanating from his fiery, summer, sunny direwolf.
The burning king. Third eye.
Burning, yes, yep. Exactly.
So just copious warm language there. There is Summer with the eye of the weirwood net, if you will, the green sea eye. Like I said, the idea of the summer wolf and the summer child Bran going north and then not only going into the frozen lands, but going into the cave. So like I said, the cave of night, the idea that the sun travels through the underworld in between rising and setting you find it in many mythologies. Mesoamerican mythology in particular liked that one. But yes, even in Japanese mythology, we've got Amaterasu hiding in a cave and causing a long night. So same thing. Bran is literally in a cave. They're hiding in a cave, and it's as, fall is falling and as it's turning into winter, they're down there. Wolves are associated with Apollo. Oh, good point. I didn't even think about that. You're right. Apollo, the Roman sun god, is associated with wolves. That's true.
And that even feeds with Bran going down into the summer cave and eventually rising again, feeds into something we'll discuss in a while, his psychopomp aspect, where he passes beneath the earth, sort of into a state of undeath before he rises again to sort of like a psychopomp would.
To perform a psychopomp role, you have to have a connection to both realms. You have to have the power to stride the realms. So a lot of those figures they die and come back, like Osiris and things like that. So thanks for all you do. Do you think Bran's title as king will be Bran the Broken as in the show, or something else? No, Bran the Broken sucks. And he literally, the Clash of Kings ends with him looking at Winterfell and saying, "It's not broken, and I'm not broken either." That's why it's so terrible. No, it should be Bran the Blessed, but it'll probably be there's a lot of nicknames with Bran. We're going to compare him to a lot of things. Summer King, part of this is obviously the Oak and Holly King cycle, just going over the basics, which you guys are all familiar with. This is the turning of the cycle of the seasons. The Oak King he's the king of the summer. He rules for 6 months, and then his brother, the Holly King, vanquishes him or kills him or takes his place, and then he rules over the winter. And different mythologies make the dividing times at different. Sometimes the Summer King takes over at the winter solstice, meaning as soon as the days begin to get shorter, it's the rule of the Summer King. Other times the Summer King takes over like in the spring. Whatever, it doesn't matter. It's the same idea. They trade places. It's a cycle. This is basically taking the Green Man idea and splitting him in half. The Green Man represents the entire forest, and when it's just one Green Man, he usually dies in the fall and is resurrected in the spring. And there's nobody in charge of the winter. It's just the Green Man is dead or sleeping or whatever. Oak and Holly King creates a Winter King and gives you a trade-off. So Bran is born in the summer, like an Oak King. And of course, they are descended from Garth the Green, who is a Green Man King. Going back to the burning third eye, Odin, although he's not really talked about as a solar deity, there is some research that indicates he did serve that purpose in the Norse pantheon, with the one eye representing the sun and, of course, divine knowledge and all that. And that is well expressed in this piece of art on the right. So there is Bran's third eye and Odin's third eye. But There's the Oak and Holly King. And the Ice and Fire version of that, of course, is the Others in the Green Men. I will shout out Jeremy Nels, of course, who did this artwork custom for us. So same idea, Summer King, Winter King. And just to really hang a lampshade on it, George calls Bran the Prince of the Green. And this is in his direwolf dream. He's sort of exalting to himself, Prince of the Green, Prince of the Wolf's Wood. At first, the word just comes, it says, the man sound came into his head suddenly, Prince, yet he could feel the rightness of it. So when he's a wolf, obviously he's thinking like a wolf, and it's like, oh, a man word. And then he's like, yeah, that is right. Prince of the Green, Prince of the Wolf's Wood. And he comes out of the dream and says, I was the Prince of the Woods, Prince of the Green. And then that compares to this, one of the very first chapters where Catelyn is talking about the nameless, faceless gods of the Greenwood that the Starks share with the children of the forest. And of course, there's a whole bit about the originally the Weirwoods having green leaves and all that.
And he does become the Prince of the Green Wood. Eventually, he's being seated down on a throne of Weirwood. He becomes this royal, princely tree figure. So being the Prince of the Greenwood, the nameless, faceless gods of the Greenwood, that fits absolutely perfectly.
Like we said, the Starks are descended from Garth the Green, aren't they? Like kind of, sort of, mythically, you know.
Suggested through Brandon of the Bloody Blade being a descendant, the name Brandon obviously passing through to House Stark. It seems very likely that he is, and it would explain his green king symbolism around him as well.
What's funny, Eldric, is mostly the Starks are kings of winter. Obviously, they're literally called the Kings of Winter, and they rule the North, and they're sort of gaunt and lean and hungry like the wolves, which is kind of the characteristic of the Winter Kings, whereas the Summer King is like Robert. He's fat and, you know, he's gluttonous, and he's exulting in all the excesses of the summer or whatever. But Bran is kind of like a throwback. So within House Stark, he is more of a Summer King figure, even though most of his house is Winter King. It's kind of interesting, isn't it?
It is, yeah. His father, Ned, described as having grey skin, grey eyes. Jon and Arya both having those grey skin and grey eyes of the Starks. Even right back to the Kings of Winter just being grey kings themselves. It is bizarre that all of a sudden we get this Summer King pop out of a line of Winter Kings. Yeah, we'll discuss a fair bit of that going through. They seem connected. It's unusual. We even hear of Garth. This is something I haven't brought up. When he goes to war, he puts on a crown of iron and bronze like the Winter Kings as well. So it's almost like the Green King can become the Grey King or something along those lines.
That's exactly it. So we see, for example, on the Iron Islands, the Grey King, he's as grey as a winter sea. So he's really, there's a lot of comparisons between the Starks and the Grey King and all that with the as we've talked about. But then we have House Goodbrother, and shout out to Crowfood's daughter. This was originally her find. House Goodbrother is like a green Garth house in the middle of the Iron Islands. They live on the land. They don't like the sea. They are, Aaron's like soft Greenlanders, and they dress richly. They're very fertile. There's just tons and tons of them. They're multiplying like Garthmen. Just like you said, it's a cycle. So we see embedded in one the other. In a place where there's mostly Winter Kings, you still see the Summer King. And sometimes you see characters changing from one to the other, like with Renly and Stannis and Robert. Robert is Summer King when he's alive, but then he's trending towards death. And so you see him go down into the crypts and share certain likenesses with Ned as he's getting ready to join the dead.
Yeah.
And that is something we talked about, the way the seasons overlay of the story. Just as Bran is going and hiding out during the winter, Robert's reign is coming to an end as summer is, isn't it?
It is, yes. And the first time we meet him, he descends down into the Winterfell crypts, as we were just saying. Almost, like Bran going beneath the earth in Bloodraven's cave, that Summer King passing beneath the earth and Summer going away due to his hiding, essentially. Yeah.
And Bran is like being wounded here. Robert is setting in motion his downfall, essentially, because this is where Cersei and Jaime decide to accelerate their planning, and it leads to Cersei poisoning him out in the woods when he's dressed in his hunting greens, etc., etc. Renly also, another green man who dies here in the fall as we're getting ready to turn to the long night. So, another one, there's the Barrow King legend in the Barrowlands, and some people say, well, he used to be Garth. That's the king of the first men, but now he's the Barrow King. So the Barrow King is the Winter King form of Garth, in a sense.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Him of many names. He really does have some names, and I'm forgetting it. So this is Garth, of course, the Green Man. This is the Oaken Seat. I forgot to mention, but of course, Garth is associated with the Oaken Seat of House Gardener. It's a living tree throne of some kind, supposedly an oak. And then, of course, at the Harvest Feast chapter, which we're going to get into later in the video, Bran is sitting in an oaken seat as he's doing, drinking wine blood and doing some cultish stuff. So
very interesting scene to reread when you're highlighted. We're going to go through the Harvest Feast, and wow, it's opened up a whole new perspective for me on that scene. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I've got the Jethro Tull Cup of Wonder in my head, for those of you who know it. Ask the Green Man where he comes from. There's no answer. He comes from nature. He's the first thing. So here he is on the left. This is a piece of artwork. This is the Weirwood in King's Landing. It's the King's Landing heart tree. It's an oak in King's Landing. And then on the right is, it's Naomi Cornock, I believe, the artist. And that is the Oak King drawn as a tree face, which he often is. So some of this tree face stuff that George is doing, there are some inspirations for it. I mean, it's a fun idea, and obviously sometimes trees have the little knots that look like eyes, which naturally suggests it, but specifically Mimir is sometimes drawn as a tree face, and the oak and holly kings are sometimes depicted this way. He still has the horns though, so got a unicorn in there. Good stuff. And then here is Bran and an oak king that looks very grown-up Bran-like. He's got the red hair, got the blue feathers. I could almost see that as grown-up Bran.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
On the left is Greg Ruth, the artist, and that is the cover art that I used. And this is one that I made way long time ago, Bran the Summer King. So
that's him.
Bran is part of a seed, isn't it, Eldric? Tell us about that.
It is. It refers to the seed bran. The bran is the outer sheathing of a kernel of seed or wheat. It's often stripped off to produce whatever needs to be produced. But it just referring to Bran as a part of a seed sort of refers to his summer king aspect and the refertilization and regrowth of things after winter. It also refers to the corn king aspect of Bran as well, very associated with feeding the crows, the corn, being a corn king himself, another psychopomp sort of figure. Dies in the winter and resurrects in the spring to bring back the growth and bring back fertilization to the land and ensure, bountiful harvests and things like this. So
yeah, because one of the things about the corn king that I sometimes forget to emphasize is that he is like a harvested plant. So his harvesting feeds the people. And that you see Jon doing that. He's called the corn king, obviously, by the Raven, and he's letting the wildlings through the wall and feeding them. First thing they get when they come through is a hot meal, and that's part of the draw. So then he dies, in part for having let them through. So it's pretty straightforward corn king stuff. And with Bran, it's all about him giving the corn to the ravens, because the corn isn't wheat, but they're still seeds. Okay, and so and it's similar. It's got the outer, I don't know if they call it corn bran, but it's got the same structure of the outer skin. Interesting also that the Bran is the outer skin and Bran's a skin changer.
Yeah. It can sort of slip the skin off. Yeah, that does that up.
And so basically when Bran is offering the corn to the crows, that's just foreshadowing the idea of him as a Fisher King giving up his fertility, giving up his life, his mobility, his body, for the land, for the trees, for Westeros. Literally, it's the fertility. Like you think the seed is giving him his seed. That's what he's losing the ability to do, is to have children when he gets paralyzed. So it's pretty good symbolism there. And then he's eaten by the Black Gate. I love that. Let me get my Black Gate artwork here. There's corn. Bran is also planted underground like corn.
Yep, so he can bring back the spring. Yep.
Right. Bran is
Bran
a food.
Muffins.
He's to be eaten, right?
Yep.
And so he is eaten by the Black Gate, which is a Weirwood face. So just as he's offering seed to the crows, he's literally being served up to the Weirwood Nut here.
Yeah, given to the trees. That's right. It goes back to the psychopomp aspect once again, even of like a Jesus figure, the self-sacrifice to feed the people with his own sacrifice to, keep fertilizing the land and to keep humanity surviving. It's that self-sacrificial aspect that George loves to write about so much.
Yeah, and so, for example, other corn kings would be Osiris, who does have green skin. He is a vegetation god, and of course he dies and becomes Lord of the Underworld and becomes a psychopomp. Okay, and Jon, like we said, is a corn king. Jesus, in a sense, is a corn king. He has a lot of themes with Jesus feeding the people all throughout his life. And then, of course, his death is literally giving other people the chance to go to heaven. So it's a similar idea. It's a sacrifice that feeds everyone spiritually. And yeah, so those are corn kings eaten by the Blackgate. So Brandon is a version of the Welsh Briandon or Brianan, Brianane, and it means prince. So we're going to get to, like I said, Bran the Blessed and the Voyage of Bran Mac Fabale. Bran Mac Fabale. The comments are going to be brutal to me here. Bran the Blessed and Bran Mac Fabal are both kings. So just George naming Bran is a clue that he's going to be a king. Like, it's a king name, and it literally means prince. Just covering the basics here. He is the Prince of Winterfell. He's the Prince of the Wood, like we said. Princes become kings. But then there's this other name, Brandon or Brianan, can mean broom hill or a hill covered with broom and gorse, which are just like shrubby flowering plants or whatever. And the thing I took from that was just that he's living in a hill. You know, Winterfell's built on hills. There's always, the Weirwood Caves are always under hollow hills. And George is using the hill name a lot. Like fell means hill. So Winterfell means Winter Hill. Brinden means hill valley. Bryn means hill, and then den as in like a den, like a bear den. That's a valley. So Brynden Rivers lives in a den in a hill. The hill part is, it's not revelatory, but it is descriptive, so it does fit. He's the prince that lives in a hill, prince of the hill. So yes, Bran means crow, obviously. Let me give it. So there's Prince Bran here, and here is Winter Hill, as we know, or Winter Hell, as Hot Pie thought he heard Arya say. And here is Bloodraven's den. There is the Bryn Den of the three-eyed crow. And so yeah, Bran means prince. The artist on the right, who is Sheb's art, kind of had a little intuition here. We can stop and talk about this. He's drawn Bran as Euron's sigil. And you can see that it's not really a stretch, because Bran, the crown he would inherit is a black crown, just like the one on Euron's sigil. He does have a fiery third eye, okay? He does have ravens. His name means raven. So this is a pretty cool intuitive artwork here.
It is. He must have been inspired by the draw that Euron was visited by the three-eyed crow as well, originally. The idea that he was. So that fits. I never picked up on that. That fits very well.
Yeah, Crow King. That's Jon, Bran, and Euron. Like, Jon is called Lord Crow all the time. And Bran means crow or raven. So he is like Prince Raven, Prince Crow, King Crow, you know. And then, that's Euron too. So George likes to take the same archetype and spin it out in different directions. I was just talking to Tim about Skin Trade, which is another George Martin short story that we're probably not going to cover on this story, because Tim read it and explained to me all the things that are in it. And I think it's just across the line of what I like to talk about, quite frankly.
Yeah, I've read that book. It gets pretty heavy towards the end, yeah. There's some good parallels between John Hammond and his son and Ramsay and Roose. But yeah,
there's an evil Jon Snow is the point, without getting into all the things that are in that book. There is an evil Jon Snow. And then you have, in many ways, the protagonist from Fever Dream had a lot of Jon Snow vibes as well, although he had some Rhaegar vibes. So we know that George likes to work on these archetypes in his previous works. You know, there's characters that remind you of Lyanna and Ashara Dane and other things like that. Yeah, George will do that inside of the same story. And so we see the Bran and Euron being different versions of the same archetype. We're still going around with, is Azor Ahai or Night's King a hero, a bad guy, something of both? Are they the same person, father, son, trying to atone for the sins of the other? Any of these things, like George is suggesting all the scenarios because they're fun. They're fun permutations of the theme. So we're having fun. We're all having fun here. Okay.
It's good. Yep.
Bran the Blessed. So the real name is Bendigid Fran or something.
That's what I come up with as well.
It means blessed raven. Okay, and that is why Bran the Blessed is called Bran the Blessed. He's a giant king. He's a king of Britain, and he is a giant. Here is giant Bran sitting on the coast. And this one, honestly, the Bran the Blessed artwork I could find did not have artist attribution. I pray that this is not AI art. I don't think it is. I apologize if it is, but I searched very hard. I could not find the artist. However, does a very good job of depicting what's going on. I think that looks like real art to me. It is getting harder to tell. I will say that.
It is. Yeah.
In any case, he's a giant king of Britain. That's Bran the Blessed. And his name does mean crow or raven in Welsh, Cornish, and Irish. It's almost basically interchangeable. And it is believed that ravens indicated Bran's presence. And he is associated with the Tower of London to this day, which they keep a rookery there, and they keep ravens there for that reason. So it's an important folkloric belief of Britain. And he's seen as a god king. Why don't you take over and tell some of the story here?
Yeah, so his sister Branwen is seen as the White Raven.
We have our own names at Winterfell.
So there's an Irish king, Mouth the Witch. He comes to Britain to seek Branwen's hand in marriage. And Bran and Branwen, they have 3 brothers, Mandawain, and 2 half-brothers, Nissian and Efnisian. Efnisian is a chaotic brother. He is upset by the marriage. I don't think the king saw approval from Bran.
He was like away somewhere, and he came back, and he's like, "What? You're marrying our sister off without my permission?" You know?
Yeah, that's right. So he maims the horses during the wedding feast between Branwen and Mouthwitch, and King Bran, to apologize for this, gives them new horses, and he gives them a magic cauldron that he owns as well. This magic cauldron is rather interesting.
Here's the cauldron real quick. I just want to show this one off. This is Bran the Blessed looks a lot like Odin in some of these artworks. I will just note. And of course, this is all Proto-Indo-European mythology, so these ideas are related, the mythemes are related. But yes, Bran the Blessed, he's got this cauldron. It is associated with the Gundestrup cauldron, I believe, that is. You've seen this before. It's a very famous piece of art. This was made in France, they think, and it is by Thracian silversmiths. It looks gold here. It's actually made out of silver, and it is using older motifs that are Celtic, but in a newer style. There's a lot of debate about what these things mean and stuff. However, this panel is definitely Bran the Blessed dipping somebody in the cauldron and reviving soldiers, or somebody reviving soldiers with the cauldron. That is agreed upon. And it may be that idea is older than the Bran the Blessed story, just the idea of the cauldron, because it's parallel to the Holy Grail and other things like that. This is a picture of the cauldron on the cauldron.
Is it the Gundestrup? The cauldron also depicts Cernunnos as well, I think.
Absolutely. That's the one we've shown a bunch of times, with Cernunnos sitting there with the antlers and all the animals around him. Yeah, same one.
So all very tied together, this Bran, green king, green avatar of the... It's all... You can see how well George is doing to tie all this stuff together.
You can see him in the upper right here. That's Cernunnos. He's right there, yeah.
So this cauldron that can heal and raise the dead, whoever is revived can't speak anymore. They sort of lose the ability to speak due to the fact that they don't want to communicate what they've seen beyond the realm of life. They've seen horrors unknown, almost Lovecraftian sort of, in a way, coming back, not being able to speak.
It's a big theme of this story is like people relaying things from the land of the dead, like Bran the Blessed's head at the end will be doing that. And there's a lot dealing with the trauma of the soldiers. So this is a myth that is very tragic, but also deals with the human aspect of like having seen too much. It is kind of Lovecraftian. Yeah, totally.
So back to the story, King Bran gives them the new horses after they were maimed, and the magic cauldron. He passes that on as well as a part of the apology. So back in Ireland, others hear of Efnisian's insult and grow angry. Branwen gets treated like a slave and beaten, but no word is allowed to get back to Britain. It's almost very reminiscent of Ramsay and Arya. Just
that's exactly what it's like. That was tugging at me. Yeah. So like King Mathalcher. How did you say it?
Mathalwitch.
That sounds good.
Could be wrong.
He gets back to Ireland and like he's all like, "Hey, I got Branwen for my queen." But yeah, once the word gets out of Efnisian's insults, people are like, you took that laying down, you know? And then so he then feels embarrassed, and then he begins mistreating Branwen. They have a child, Gwairm, and he is now Prince of Ireland and in line to inherit, but Branwen is being mistreated. She's being beaten and treated like a kitchen scullery maid or something like that.
And that seems to be the goal within House Bolton, is to procreate with a Stark to take Winterfell, you know. So,
exactly. That's kind of in Silver Chair too. We'll get to that at the end. The Narnia Silver Chair parallel is going to blow you all away, so you better stay to the end, or if you're watching this after the fact and you're working your way through the stream and taking breaks, get to the end. Just good stuff at the end. Also, will Bran ride the comet? Skin change the comet. That's coming at the end. I don't know why it's a starling and not a crow, but it's a different blackbird. In any case, Branwen, in captivity for years, she befriends a starling and feeds it and trains it to carry a message. And so she ties a message to its leg, Raven style, and sends it to King Bran and tells him of her plight. And of course, King Bran gets mad about this. And so we're going to have to wade across the water. Bran's a giant. And so the fleet sails across the water, but Bran, he just wades across because he's that big. You remember that, like with when we talked about the Giant's Causeway, there was same thing. The giants can wade through the water and cross, and yeah, it's kind of a thing. So love this picture. Again, kind of Odin-like, but there's King Bran the Blessed wading across the ocean to Ireland. And when he gets there, they are terrified and they retreat across the river. But then King Bran lays down and becomes a bridge. And the soldiers cross on his back. And then Mathelwitch is like, oh, well, let's have some peace talks. So they reach this truce, and Gwerm is now going to rule Ireland. So to mollify Bran, they're like, okay, we'll tell you what. We'll let your son take over right now. And we'll build a giant house for him because he's a giant too. He's half giant, so he's big. And they're going to build a big house for him. And it's all good, right?
Yep, should be fine.
Should be fine.
Yeah, we see some treachery happen. They sort of set Bran up. I think that's the case, isn't it? They want to have 100 Irish soldiers hide in sacks attached to pillars on the wall, and they plan to jump out and basically ambush him. But Efnisien, the chaotic brother that we heard about earlier, sniffs them out and crushes them all in the sacks, and then they have more peace talks.
So what's interesting about this is like this character of Efnisien, at first he's just like the stereotypical troublemaker. It's like, oh, cool. So he was arrogant and offended at not being consulted, and then he screwed everything up for everyone else. Well, here he's actually, it's like, oh, you kind of need that edgy character in your camp. He's valuable sometimes because he's the one who sniffed out the treachery and circumvented it. I don't know how he was able to crush all 100 before anyone stopped him, but he's a giant, so he did that. And so then they hold more peace talks. And Efnisien now, he goes too far this time, and he throws Gwern in the fire. So it's his nephew. And there's some mild insult. Like he said he wasn't greeted or something like that. But for whatever reason, he throws him in the fire. Then war breaks out again. This time it's full-on war, right?
Yeah, that's right. And the Irish, they eventually use this cauldron that King Bran had given to them earlier to revive the people, their soldiers that are dying. And we have an army of the undead, essentially. The British, they just can't win. They're hamstruck. So Efnisien, the chaotic brother, once again, feels ashamed about what's happened, about the war that's breaking out. So he plays dead, and so that he'll be thrown in the cauldron. And one of the things about this magical cauldron is it can't have the living go inside. And so Efnisien, once he's inside, bursts out and breaks the cauldron from inside and bursts his own heart in the effort. Essentially, he passes, doesn't he? He dies from this.
He does.
Yeah. So self-sacrifice for the greater good, essentially. But yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And this is an important, well, we'll get to the ice and fire correlations of all this in a second, but yeah, going inside the cauldron and breaking it, definitely some parallels to the Weirwood net and shutting down the Weirwood net, since that seems to be the thing the others are using to raise the dead. And so Bran the Blessed, in the battle, he is Achilles-like, struck in the heel by a poisonous spear, and so he is dying. And I will again just remind you that Greek myth is Proto-Indo-European derived, as is Celtic myth. So if you go back a couple thousand years, there's some figure who gets his heel injured who became both Achilles and Bran the Blessed, or at least that part of the story, became parts of those two stories. Doesn't mean they're the same character, but it's a common idea, mytheme, as they say.
Yes.
So as he's dying, he orders the soldiers to cut off his head and bury it facing France to guard Britain. And his head keeps talking for a while. It doesn't die right away. So there's a magic thing about cutting off his head. And he can now, like you said, speak from the other side. He can say what he has seen on the other realm, and so he becomes sort of a psychopomp type of thing. Now, only 7 of Bran's soldiers survive after the cauldron is destroyed, and they sail home with the head, right? The Irish have all been killed except for 5 pregnant women who hid in caves and then come out and they give birth to the Irish nation. And Ireland is divided into 5 areas according to those 5 women or something like that. So a little bit of an origin myth. So when her son Gwern was thrown into the fire, she tried to leap into the fire after her son, but Bran stopped her. Okay, and so later she dies of a broken heart. She drops dead out of sorrow for all the trouble that's been caused on her accounts, kind of, sort of. And so there's some sort of tragedy there, and there's a castle or tower that's built where she supposedly dropped dead. So that's an important thing. And Bran's soldiers return to Castle Harlech, where they're from, and they are entertained by the talking Bran head for 7 years. It's jolly and it tells jokes or whatever. I don't know. They're entertained by it, is the story. Then they go and visit an island right off the coast. And this is a theme we'll see in another story about Bran. They visit an island where they forget their sorrow and do not perceive the passing of time. And they stay there for an indeterminate period of time. It's 80 years in some tales. But there's this door they're not supposed to open. And if they do open it, they'll remember all their sorrow, and somebody sooner or later opens the door, and so they remember all the things they've been through, and we've got to go bury Bran's head, like he said. So once they do this, the Bran head stops talking, and they return to London. They bury the head under the White Hill where the Tower of London stands, and again, that is why there is a rookery in the Tower of London, and so he is now guarding Britain so that no one can invade by sea. I don't know why he's looking at France when they just had trouble with Ireland, but he's protecting Britain, so...
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so as you can see, a lot of parallels across to A Song of Ice and Fire. It's even down to the fact of being buried under the white tower under the hill. It's almost like a symbolic weirwood tree, the white tower itself, and the talking heads we often see beneath weirwoods. Very interesting stuff.
Yeah, the Black Gate face literally talks, and then you've got, Bloodraven as a talking head under the tree, buried. Half dead, giving knowledge from the other side. Yeah, totally. I've got that line. The Winterfell weirwood is described as some pale giant frozen in time. And there's a lot of things that George is doing with giant, but given that Bran the Builder founded Winterfell and was probably a greenseer and is probably down in the crypts and is probably in that weirwood tree, it's a frozen giant. So that could be a Bran the Blessed reference.
Yeah, for sure. Yep, both Bran the Builder and Bran the Broken, both heavily associated with giants. One skin changes a giant, and the other, Bran the Builder, was potentially skin-changing giants as well, building the wall and things like that.
Right, and you're talking about Hodor as the giant that Bran skin changes, right?
Yeah, that's right.
We've got a lot of Hodor coming, so don't worry about that. So shout out to David Byrne and the Talking Heads, but it occurred to me that the idea that the Bran head talked for a while and then it couldn't, it's kind of like the Weirwoods. We think they used to be able to talk like the Black Gate, and now they can't. They're silent and they can only whisper. So it's sort of that theme of being silenced. George is doing a lot of that with that, but we notice it here. The people coming out of the cauldron can't speak. The head talks and then it goes silent. The whispers. This is an obvious one. And this is, I think, Clarence Crabb and Brienne and that whole Cracklaw Point. It's the end of Cracklaw Point is the whispers, an abandoned castle with a weirwood tree. And the legend is that Clarence Crabb used to have all these heads that he kept down in the caves at the bottom. And you can see the caves there, and he consulted the heads. He would cut the heads off of people he defeated, but then he would keep the heads and consult them. And they would talk to him and mutter to him. And when Brienne gets to the edge of the cliff, she listens and she's like, oh, it's just the waves coming in and out. It's the sea coming in and out of the caves, not talking heads. But of course, since there's a weirwood up there, we can see that this is actually all a symbolic picture. The heads are living in the green sea, so they are voices from the green sea. It's the whispering of the sea, but they are, the dead people that have their knowledge in the weirwood net, etc., etc. But this is a more literal depiction of the Bran the Blessed thing, with the idea that there's heads down there that talk and give advice. So absolutely, and feels like a bit of a wink wink nudge nudge from George to say, hey, we're drawing on Bran the Blessed here. We've got talking heads. And like you said, the one I was going to bring up was they're speaking with the green sea. You're hearing the voices of the sea as they whisper through the caves. It's, very good stuff. And then, the Bran Titan thing, it's like he's a giant who strides out to the sea to defend Britain. I mean, that's the Titan.
Perfect. I hadn't picked up on that, and it's ideal because the Titan is a green man. He's got his green armor, his green hair, and he rises from the green sea and
he's got the broken sword of the last hero, which we're going to talk about the fact fact that Brander in Norse means burning sword.
Yep.
So
And Bran himself is broken like the sword and will be a weapon against the others. So, yeah.
So the Titan, he strides out into the sea. Yeah, I mean, it's great. And check out the Symbolism of Bravo stream that I did with Eldric, this side, just a few weeks back. That was a very successful stream. Had a lot of fun with that one. So thanks for bringing that idea to me. I call up Eldric. I'm like, hey, mate, what do you want to do? What do you want to talk about? And he's like...
And I say, g'day, Dave. This is what I've got.
Yeah. That's all you have to do is call Eldric mate, and he smiles up, and then he has got tons of ideas. So.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, the Titan, there's more with the Titan, though. I've got a specific quote from the Bran legend right below here that we're going to read, so I'll get to that in a second. But if you remember, Bran becomes a bridge. And, of course, bridges and weirs are an important symbol that George is working with. So the idea that Bran becomes a bridge, Bran Stark is becoming a weirwood, and also a bridge to, like, to spring, to the rebirth of the weirwood net. He's shutting down the old way, creating a new way, so that makes him a bridge. He might even do a political bridge thing where he's the last king and they're coming up with a different system after him, you know. So
he'll also be the bridge between the living and the dead, between the weirwoods and the not,
and also a bridge. Yeah,
and also a bridge through the cycles of time as well, as he ends this cycle and then bridges across to the new cycle. You know, potentially going from Bran the Broken to Bran the Builder, or the new title, whatever we think he might become. But whatever he'll be the rebuilder of society as that green king that rules after the winter, that brings the summer back.
How do you know if she's made of wood? We'll build a bridge out of her. Shout out to Martin Crow in the chat. So the cauldron that raises the dead, like we were saying, it's kind of like the Holy Grail or the One Ring. It's just a symbol of condensed magical power. Specifically, the others seem to be using the modified weirwood power, if you want, to raise the dead. And Bran is going to have to shut down the weirwood net. That's one of the big theories at the top of this iceberg. There are a couple Bran theories. That is the one that I've got. Yeah, shutting down the cauldron from the inside definitely reminds me of that idea.
It does, yeah.
The undead being silent. You know, we see Stoneheart can barely talk. Beric is forgetting who he is. Ilian Payne, the silent child. There's a lot of silencing. Weirwoods are silent. You could probably do a whole stream on that, but oops.
You could, even the Silent Sisters and their association with death as well, and their, passing of people on to the dead. I shouldn't have written warriors, probably just people return to life, being silent. It's, once again refers to that Lovecraftian aspect of seeing the other side and not being able to speak about the horrors beyond, essentially.
I was just wondering if George is thinking of Nissa a little bit like Branwen, and she's stolen away. We've got to go get her, and it's kind of a tragic story. Got to go across the sea to get her. That has some vague parallels to that idea. And we do think that Nissa might be needing a rescue. That does look that way in some of the parallels. And then her son is Gwern. He's a last hero type. He's slain, just like the last hero. George just resurrects him or whatever, but it seems roughly parallel. And the last hero does seem to be a son of Nissa or Night's Queen or both, something like that. So that kind of tracks as well. Yeah. Now, you had some extra insights on the correlation between the cauldron and obviously the weirwood bowl that Bran eats from, and also the Holy Grail. So why don't you peel through this, and I've got some art ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're about to discuss in regards to Bran the Blessed is it seems that he has influenced the tale of the Fisher King, which we'll get into soon. But the idea of the cauldron influenced the idea of the Holy Grail that the Fisher King guards. When we look to the weirwood bowl that Bran drinks from, we see a lot of parallels, because the Holy Grail itself is often thought of as a chalice, but it was probably more of a wooden bowl or a wooden dish, and drinking from the Holy Grail could offer eternal life. It could, and then drinking from the weirwood bowl does exactly the same thing. You can wed the tree and gain eternal life through the weirwoods. Like I said, the Holy Grail just depicted as a bowl, and the Holy Grail was used at the Last Supper with Jesus and his 12 disciples. Well, the weirwood bowl that Bran drinks from in the cave has 12 faces carved upon it, and the Grail, the Holy Grail, collected the blood of Jesus as he passed, and the weirwood bowl, once again, has the blood of Jojen, a sacrificed sort of person to help feed the summer to come back, is placed within this bowl. So we have a lot of ties back to the cauldron, which can resurrect the dead, the Holy Grail, which can offer eternal life, and the weirwood bowl that Bran drinks from all seem to interact with each other. There's a great video that, once again, Amanda from the Disputed Lands YouTube channel, she has an amazing video called The Green Men, and with the idea of the weirwoods used to have green leaves. And George spoke about it in an interview about wetting the tree and called it the Green Communion, which it's not ever listed in the series proper as the Green Communion, but it was how he referred to it as. So there is this definite religious aspect and sacrificial aspect and consumption aspect to this weirwood bowl. And yeah, just thought it was really interesting how he's tied all these things together, and whether the cauldron could offer some sort of insight into what this wetting of the trees can do, this power can do. But yeah, some definite ties through there.
Yeah, I think the main thing is that, so first of all, Efnisian sacrifices himself going into the cauldron. So that's a little bit like Jojen going into the cauldron. But really, I think the biggest idea is like breaking the weirwood net from the inside. I think Bran's going to have to do something like that.
Yes, that makes sense. And this is his gateway into the trees. This is how he weds the trees. So this cauldron, this weirwood bowl, is his... Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, for sure.
And if you just look, like, I love these figures. Like, these are so silly for a classic. Like, it's a big head with legs. Like, what is this? This is a head with arms. Like,
yeah, it is bizarre.
It is bizarre. But the weirwood bowl with the faces, like, it really does remind you of this. So
yeah, visually that is very striking. Yeah, it looks exactly like it, doesn't it?
There's Jojen sitting in the bowl of an oak. Oh, bowl of a weirwood. Check out, if you think that like the Jojen paste theory is wrong, you're wrong. You need to check out my video, Weirwood Paste is People. It's absolutely fact. The only question is it just his blood in there, or is it like his pureed brain in there? That's the only question I have. There is Jojen's in that bowl. It's just, how much of him. So
absolutely, yeah.
It's got to be the brain. It really does.
It has to be, yeah.
Too much about eating frog soup out of Crown Ogmen helmets. Like,
yeah.
That's brain soup, guys. So as I mentioned, this is all Proto-Indo-European myth. So there's a couple of correlations you guys might get a kick out of. There's a big theme in Proto-Indo-European myth is the slain twin. Sometimes it's a twin, sometimes it's a cow, sometimes it's a dragon. But the way that you identify this character is that when they are slain, their body parts turn into the world. So Tiamat, that happens. That happens with Ymir in Norse myth. So this is a very common thing. And the slain twin is often called Yimu. That's like the original PIE word. So Ymir, a variant of Yimu. Manu or Manus is the one who kills him. And this is like the first man or first warrior figure. He always slays this giant and helps create the world out of its body parts. Odin slayed Ymir, and Ymir's bones and eyes and all these things became the different parts of the world, right? And even some races, the bones birth the dwarves. Yeah, that's right. So similar thing with Bran. Okay, when they are wading across, when Bran is wading across, the Irish king said that the soldiers reported back to the Irish king that they had seen trees on the sea and a mountain with a tall ridge, a lake at each side, moving across the sea towards them. So it's this interesting green sea forest metaphor that they're working. And we're going to see that in the Voyage of Bran as well. Same metaphor. And so, yeah, it's trees on the sea and a mountain with a tall ridge, a lake at each side, moving across the sea towards them. Branwen said, "Oh no, that's just my brother Bran." She told them the forest were the masts of the ships. And next she explained that the mountain was the head of Bran, as there wasn't a ship big enough to contain him. His head was tilted back so he could breathe, because I guess the water was right up to his head. And so the ridge was his nose, and the caves were his nostrils, and the blue lakes were his eyes. So what she saw was Bran's head striding across the water. So it's a similar thing where, like, his body is like the earth, right?
And it brings him on the god's eye, even with the blue lakes as an eye as well.
True.
Yeah.
That's true. Although that's more directly drawn from Baelor of the Evil Eye and his lake that he lasers and all that stuff. But yes.
Yep.
And then we've got the sacrificed god usually becomes Lord of the Underworld. So I mentioned that with the Corn King god. Same thing for Bran the Blessed. So for example, he creates the cauldron or possesses the cauldron that can heal and restore life. So that's a psychopomp role, bringing the dead back to life. His talking head speaks from the realm of the dead, And then, of course, he leads people across the sea and back. And so, yeah, the Fisher King myth. Can you explain the Fisher King to the people?
Yeah, so the Fisher King myth probably derives from the Bran the Blessed tale. The Grail that we see in the Fisher King myth essentially equates to the cauldron that Bran the Blessed utilized. They think it derives from that. So the Fisher King, he becomes wounded in his what's described as his leg or his groin, and it's often meant to symbolize the loss of his fertility, his inability to sort of reproduce and sort of essentially not die, but just become infertile and, sort of reflect the lands that he lives in. So his kingdom, if the king loses his fertility, the kingdom and the land also loses its fertility as well. So he's very tied to the land, and symbolically, whatever happens to him happens to the land. I think it sort of refers back to the fact that if a king can't reproduce as well, the kingdom can't continue forth because there's no heir. So it sort of stagnates and dies. And that's reflected back in the land as well.
So I will just say that this is an outgrowth of Green Man mythology, essentially. Like, the Green Man represents nature. It's just a more civilized idea. Well, the king has to play that role, too. He is also the guardian and the representation of the land, of the kingdom. There's this correlation. Yeah, the Green Man dies when nature loses its green in the autumn. Here, the causal and effect relationship is flipped, where it's like, oh, the king gets sick and then the land sickens. But it's the same idea.
Yeah, that's exactly right. This Fisher King wound, they call it, is referred to as the Dolorous Stroke, which is quite interesting that we think of Dolorous Ed, and it feels like a deliberate addition there for whatever reason. Sorry,
I'll just pipe in that Ned Stark gets a Fisher King. He gets wounded in the leg. He gets the Fisher King wound. So Dolorous Ed is a clue that Ned has a Fisher King wound. And of course, he gets wounded, and he's the honorable man. He's the most honorable man in Westeros, or at least in King's Landing. When he is betrayed and injured, the kingdom starts falling to shit, doesn't it?
It does, yes. And he goes down beneath the earth as well into the black cells. But I think the Fisher King, it's an Arthurian legend that sort of came after the Celtic legend of Bran the Blessed, and it seems to have passed through to the Arthurian side. But we see a definite parallel across to Bran, and Bran becoming Bran the Broken. He has that leg injury, and him being the Stark in Winterfell sort of ties across to the idea that Winterfell is his realm, and once he receives this wound, this infertility wound, this symbolic infertility wound, his Winterfell breaks as well. So we get Bran the Broken, Winterfell is broken, the lands become broken, winter starts to onset, so we're losing crops. We see, just chaos break out across the land with the North. We see, the Boltons and their, awful treatment of the Starks, and so Bran.
And there's also that saying like, oh, when there's a Stark in Winterfell, the King's Road is safe from the wall to the neck. But now, it's pretty heavy.
It is, yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, and a good reference by Dave with the glass gardens as well. After his fall and becomes broken, the glass gardens sort of fall into disrepair. We've got no food, we've got no way to sustain life. Everything just slowly dies as winter takes over. So yeah, it's a very interesting way he's included the Fisher King myth within A Song of Ice and Fire. Is very direct. Sorry.
So yeah, here's wounded Bran. He's doing things like sitting or riding Dancer with the special thing there. So yeah, he is the wounded king of Winterfell, and he is now hanging out with another Fisher King, another wounded king, because Fisher King hides in a castle waiting for someone to come find him. That's kind of like Bloodraven. Even though Bran is the Fisher King, he goes and joins Bloodraven and is sitting in a cave. It's possible that Jon or somebody might have to go find Bran in the cave, but I don't think so. I think Bran is the one going to find someone in a cave who is Bloodraven. Yeah. So it's just kind of parallel symbolism. But in Bloodraven, there is a weirwood root going through his thigh.
Yes, so he has that leg wound as well.
And I was wondering if the sexual sin of the Fisher King, he sometimes is, his sin is that he desires the wrong woman, because the Grail tells him who he's supposed to marry and to be his queen. So if he desires a different woman, that's a sin. Bloodraven and Share a Sea Star. It's this sort of arm's length relationship where, they wanted each other, but Shiera wouldn't let him marry, and him and Bittersteel fought over her, kind of. So I don't know if that's a vague thing or not. But Bran also thinks about touching Mira with Hodor, right? Comforting her, kissing her, telling her that he loved her. So there's a weird potential sexual sin illusion there. Obviously, Bran's a kid, so they can only go so far with that, but...
Yeah, hopefully it's just a little reference and doesn't go any further. Well, let's pray.
Yeah, because George, he wouldn't do... I mean, he wouldn't... Oh. Yeah. I spent about half an hour with Tim on the phone. Shout out Greyways Tim if you're watching. And I started off by asking him, it's a short book. So I was like, is there enough there to do a whole stream? He's like, yeah, but...
It's pretty heavy.
Anyway, so going along with the Fisher King Bran is Merman Bran. Merman. He is not only a Fisher King, but he is a fish. Of course, you guys know the greenseers swim in the Green Sea, which is the astral sea that they live in. And they're greenseers, so it's a green sea, etc., etc. It's very funny. A lot of times the forests are like a sea right here. This is a famous one when Jon's at the top of the Fist of the First Men. 1,000 leaves fluttered, 1,000 leaves in one. And for a moment, the forest seemed a deep green sea, storm-tossed and heaving, eternal and unknowable. And that's the whole eternal and unknowable. That's the thing. Like the sea represents that, the dark forest, outer space, a cave. These are all depictions of the scary places, the unknown, unconscious, the dream realm, afterlife, etc.
The chaos realm, absolutely.
All right, and so that is the sea. That's where the greenseers inhabit. They have got 1 foot in the realm of death.
So as Dave was saying, we refer to the weirwood realm as the Green Sea, and we see a lot of mermaid symbolism around green seers who can navigate the Green Sea. And a perfect one with Bran is he's lost the use of his legs and become a symbolic mermaid. And it was through the loss of this leg that he was able to awaken his power and swim the Green Sea, or swim through the rivers of time. And I think a good example of this is the Grey King, who took a mermaid to wife. He took his mermaid wife so his children could live above or below the sea. Whether that refers to squishes or not, potentially back in the past, but I think symbolically this refers to the idea of creating children that can navigate the Green Sea. I think he's trying to have greenseer children, children with the gift that he's then, stolen or taken or been able to use. And I think a really good parallel across to this is Ned Stark. He's a grey king. He's grey eyes, grey skin. There's a lot of parallels there we won't go down. But he took a mermaid wife in Catelyn. And then his children are all of a sudden born with skin changing and green seeing powers. So the grey king Ned Stark took a mermaid to wife, and his children can both live above and below the Green Sea as well. So we see this Bran as like a mermaid child, this Green Sea child that has been born with mermaid abilities.
If I could just interject, I will say that Nissa being an elf woman, a child of the forest, means that all the Nissa figures are mermaids. And we see that over and over. Dany's sneaky mermaid symbolism is my favorite. She is navigating the green grass sea. So it's a green sea that's made of plants, and she has a silver seahorse to ride in the sea.
It's one of the most
good
clever
stuff.
George
I did like 4 Weirwood Compendium episodes based on all that symbolism. There's sea dragon ships and all kinds of stuff. But the other thing about the Grey King, since you mentioned it, Naga's Bones. And by the way, I made a video called Naga's Bones a few weeks ago. Some of you may have missed it. The YouTube algorithm has turned its back on me as of a couple of months ago. I have no idea why. And if you missed it, I finally did a Naga's Bones Weirwood Arc video. I've talked about it many times, but organized it all into a video. And of course, the Grey King, the whole idea of him building a Weirwood boat or living in a long haul that's made of a Weirwood boat is that the Weirwoods are vessels and ships for the greenseers to sail the Green Sea with. There's a lot about building ships and sailing ships, and we're going to get into some of that in a minute. But yes, Grey King marrying a mermaid, sailing the Weirwood Sea. It's all the same stuff. And Nissa, like I said, Nissa is always a mermaid. So we see a lot of people marrying mermaids, and that's always a reference to Nissa and the Green Sea. And it's perfectly spelled out here. So the children can live above or below the waves, so they can live in both realms.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
And then the last part about fish people is Blackfish Tully and Bryndon Rivers. I looked up Tully. Tully means flood. So these names are Brandon Rivers and Brandon Flood.
Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it?
will.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. We sort of looked over the Blackfish compared to Bloodraven, and the Blackfish, he is the Knight of the Bloody Gate, which is interesting because we see Bryndon Rivers as a greenseer. He is sort of operating a Weirwood Gate in a way and allowing access into the Weirwood as well. And he is sort of a knight that allows that to pass through. Yeah, and even back to the idea of the Black Gate and the psychopomp aspect of the dead allowing, or someone allowing the dead to pass into this other realm. So Bryndon having the same name as this greenseer, the Blackfish. Bryndon Rivers is a black brother with fish aspects who can navigate the Green Sea. Yeah, it's interesting. I need to look more at that. But the Black Gate, in a way as well, is a bloody gate. I think Tormund even refers to the wall, the gate in the wall, as a bloody gate. Through your bloody gate. So it's
all the Weirwood faces are bloody gates, essentially.
Yeah. So he's the Knight of the Bloody Gate, just like Bryndon Rivers is. So it was really interesting.
Yeah, and there's of course, Blackfish Tully has the obsidian fish. So even it's a further Night's Watch call out, like the obsidian weapons that the Watch has. And so yeah, there's also the password. You have to give the password to the Knight of the Bloody Gate, just like you have to give it to the Black Gate. Lots of parallels, and always Brandon's manning this gate.
Yeah, and I noticed in this quote, we won't read the whole thing, it's quite detailed, but when they pass through the Bloody Gate, they're in a sort of snowy, icy Vale of Arryn area. So it's almost as if they're passing through into this icy...
a dozen armies dashed themselves to pieces in the Age of Heroes, like the last hero and his dozen companions who were dashed to pieces in the Cold Realm after they crossed into the Deadlands. Yeah, totally.
That's right, yeah. Yep.
And the Vale of Arryn bathed in morning light, of course.
And if we go to the Green Zombies theory, the potential that the last Heroes 12 passed into the Weirwoods, I mean, that would be another good piece of evidence for that, having a dozen armies passing into the Black Gate, or the Bloody Gate. And spilling blood is required to enter that gate. So it's almost this blood aspect to entering the gate as well.
Yeah, I feel the occult vibe starting to dial up. This is excellent. Cool. So the Voyage of Bran. You will notice several common themes with the other Bran story. This is an Irish legend as opposed to the other one, which was Welsh, but they're right across the channel from each other. So there's a lot of overlap. Yeah. So Bran the King of Ireland. He's the High King of Ireland. Again, another Bran king. This time he is sailing west. So in the last story, Bran was sailing west, but it was from Wales, from Wales to Ireland. And so this time we're sailing west from Ireland to the other world. That is the crux of the story, to this fabled Isle of Women. And we're going to go over to bardmythologies.com. One day, while out walking near Tara, which is where he lives, King Bran heard beautiful music, but he could not figure out where it was coming from. No matter which way he turned, like any folklore, there's probably different versions floating around. But in any case, it's really cool. There's this music, and no matter which way he turns, he can't figure out where it is coming from. Okay, so it's always seems to be behind him. But then he's lulled to sleep by this beautiful music, and he dreams of a beautiful woman who appears in the garden holding a silver branch and singing to him of a perfect place called the Isle of Women, where there was no death, war, or conflict, and where she was the queen. And she sings all these verses about it and how great it is and stuff. And then when he wakes, he finds the silver branch in his hand and brings it back to Tara. And this detail is not in the version that I read. It says, that evening at the feast, the fairy woman appeared again, this time in front of the whole company, and she retrieved the branch and asked Bran to come sail across the sea to find her. In the version I read, it wasn't like that. The woman is saying to Bran, I'm only telling you, and you have to tell everyone else. My appearance is for you only. So it was kind of very clearly, again, that he is this connection to the spirit world, and he's supposed to tell everyone else. So he says, it's very like Jon in the Shield Hall, actually. He comes back and says, I'm going to the Isle of Women. Who's with me? And 3 of his brothers come with him, and they have names, and each of them bring 9 men. So there's 27 people plus King Bran, and they're getting ready to sail to the Isle of Women in the other land. The other world has these different islands, and this is one of them. So they set out at once. They're accompanied by, again, the Foster brothers. When they're on the ocean, they meet this folk hero or god figure named Manannán mac Lir. And I can't give you the whole background on him, but he appears riding on his white horse on his way to Ireland, and he is on the sea. It's a long part of the original one, but basically he teaches Bran another way of perceiving, and it gets back to this whole green sea, green forest symbolism, where he says the waves that you see are grassy plains, there's chariots racing to and fro over them, and he talks about how the white caps are actually calves, cows and things, and I'm not sure what the symbolism of it is about, but it's basically he's teaching him an alternate way of perceiving where the sea is like a grassy plain. And so that's what this picture is right here. You can see that Bran is on the boat and they're rowing, but then there's horses in the water and this guy riding a chariot. Not sure what that, I think this is like an older mytheme that made its way into the story, because again, you saw it in the other Bran story where Bran puts his head back and it looks like the land is crossing the sea and there's forest in the sea and all this stuff. So it's kind of similar, and it's Bran crossing the water both times. So I have to think this is a related idea. But it also reminds us, of course, of Bran Stark being taken to a secret place to learn the language of the children of the forest. Very similar.
Absolutely.
Especially with all the green sea stuff. So Bran is first, they came to this island called the Island of Joy, not the Tower of Joy, the Island of Joy. And it's this place where everyone that goes there turns into a laughing idiot. Basically, they're just laughing and they've forgotten why they're there. In one version, they all go to investigate, and then they see one of them lose his wits as soon as he sets foot on the island, and he starts laughing mindlessly with all the others, and so they have to leave him there. And the other version I read, that's not present. They all get off and they all are like, this is weird, and then they leave. And in some versions, there's 2 other islands that they stop by that are illusory, but the point is they keep pressing on. And so they get to the Island of Women, and they're cautious now because of their other experiences. So the Queen of the Island of Women, she throws this magic ball of yarn to Bran, which sticks to his hand, and then she pulls him in to the island. And I'm not sure what the meaning of that is. That's some sort of mytheme. We've seen the string and the yarn like Ariadne, and I'm not sure what it is. If somebody has an idea, feel free to pipe up. But essentially they land and everything goes well. They live in bliss. They take wives, and again, time passes and they're unaware of time's passing. But there's one person who is homesick. Niachtain, we'll call him. Although I'm not sure how you really Niachtain. So he was homesick. He begged to go back to Ireland. Eventually Bran kind of agrees. He's like, yeah, we got to go back, I guess. So the Queen said, don't do it. If don't set foot on Ireland. If you do, it will undo everything. But they go back anyway. They give him, she gives him directions, and she also gives him the magic ball of yarn so they could retrieve his man from the Isle of Joy. And he kind of disappears out of this tale here. I'm not sure how important that is. But when they sail back to Ireland, this is the interesting part. The coastline has changed, the forests are gone, the people are different, and there's only one person who remembers them, which is this very old storyteller. And he remembers the story of an ancient king called Bran, okay? Because like hundreds of years have passed. Now, Niachtain, he's overcome with homesickness. He's the one who wanted to come back. So he leaps to shore, disobeys the command. He turns to dust as soon as he lands because he's really hundreds of years old, right? So the rest of them realize they can never go home. And this is another interesting part. Bran then writes down an account of his adventures on stone tablets and tosses them to the people on the shore, then turns his ship back around and sails back to Otherworld and is never seen again. So, flipping back over to the notes. Well, go ahead, Eldric. There's a few things here.
There absolutely is, yeah. I know we made a direct comparison to Brandon the Shipwright, sharing the same name as Bran Stark, who sails, across the sunset sea into a different realm. He eventually becomes lost and never returns, which is what the people who were around King Bran would have seen. As we just heard, King Bran goes across the sea and spends time on an island, but it's sort of time's passing differently. So when he returns, hundreds, potentially thousands of years have passed. So it's almost like Brandon, almost being lost across the sea as well. It's essentially a voyage to the other world theme myth as well, which is what Bran is doing. He's Bran Stark. He's voyaging to the greenseer of the weirwoods, and like you said, Bran learns how to perceive reality differently. Like Bran the Blessed learns how to perceive reality differently, which is exactly what Bran does on his journey as well. He learns to perceive through time, essentially, and perceive the world in different ways as well. It's a very interesting myth. To begin with, Bran the Blessed, what starts his journey is he hears music on the wind and magical singers that can that tell him to seek it out, and that's exactly what Bran Stark does. He hears the calling of the children of the forest and the three-eyed crow, and he seeks these magical singers out in the same way that Bran the Blessed does. Very interesting. Lots of parallels across to that. It's even ties back to the idea of the timelessness of this other world and the timelessness of the weirwoods and the ability to sort of travel through that time and have time perceived differently and act upon you differently as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting how much the two stories have in common, and the things they have in common are the things that George is kind of working with. His journey to the other world, time passing differently in this place that you go to, Bran is a king, this heroic self-sacrifice of people. There's a lot of, and somebody's saying the thread is like a tether. When you're going to the other world, the thread is just something that ties you back. That makes sense.
Find a way back. Yep, absolutely. That's a good call.
George references this Voyage of Bran directly in the story of Brandon the Shipwright. So this is a quote from Bran's chapter where they're in the crypts looking at all the kings of winter, and he says, "That's a Brandon, the tall one with the dreamy face. He was Brandon the Shipwright because he loved the sea. His tomb is empty. He tried to sail west across the sunset sea and was never seen again. His son was Brandon the Burner because he put the torch to all his father's ships in grief." So this is literally a direct reference to the Voyage of Bran. He sails away and it never is seen again. And I was even thinking about the idea that Bran the Builder might be in the Weirwood net doing weird time loop stuff, or that our Bran, might be traveling to the past and there's some connection there. You can see echoes of that in the Bran story where he comes back hundreds of years later and they're like, "Oh yeah, there used to be a legend of King Bran," and he's like, "No, I'm him." No one recognizes him. So if you like time traveling Bran, I feel like there's an echo of that in there as well.
Absolutely.
But going back to Brandon the Burner and Brandon the Shipwright, I love this because I've always seen, or not always, but the last few years I've come to see this as Bran's story in miniature. So there's Bran the Builder is the one who built the fleet, meaning like he built the human connection to the Weirwood net, potentially. You might be one of the first people who was taught the language of the children of the forest, if you will. We don't know. Again, there's multiple figures and stuff, but that's kind of the role, the mythical archetype of Bran the Builder. He establishes House Stark. He learns the ways of the children. He builds a castle around the Weirwood tree. He maybe builds the wall, which has to do with Weirwood magic as well. So he's obviously some sort of greenseer type figure, okay? So he builds the fleet. Now, Bran Stark, our Bran, he's going to burn the fleet. He's going to set the Weirwood net on fire and shut it down. And that's why I'll go back to my famous Ertac Altinoz, Bran Stark with the burning Weirwood tree here. He is going to be Brandon the Burner. He's going to burn down the connection and be the last greenseer. So read this other quote here for me, if you would.
"We have no strength at sea for hundreds of years since Brandon the Burner put the torch to his father's ships. Grant me the gold, and within a year I will float you sufficient galleys to take Dragonstone and King's Landing both." Bran's interest picked up at the talk of warships. No one asked him, but he thought Lord Wyman's notion a splendid one. In his mind's eye, he could see them already. He wondered if a cripple had ever commanded a warship. He's even seeing the warships through his mind's eye.
And again, you think of the Grey King, where it's like, oh, he wants to command the ship. He wants to sail a ship like the Grey King. And of course, that will be the Weirwood ship, the one he can see in his mind's eye. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
There's a couple other things from the Brandon, the Voyage of Bran story. Shout out to him. There's a few people who've sailed off and never come home, in history. That happens sometimes. So Bran, the music on the wind reminds me a lot of the magical singers, the children of the forest, that tell Bran what to do. They whisper on the wind through the weirwood leaves. So that's pretty similar. Oh, the writing everything down part. It does seem like one of the things Bran's going to do. He's going to take all this knowledge of the actual history that he's gotten from the weirwood net and write it down and give it to Westeros so that they will have a record of history. I love that from the show where him and Sam are writing down, what happened. So it makes too much sense.
Really well. And he does it from his ship, which in the same way Bran the Broken, or our Bran, will be sort of doing it from his weirwood ship. He's delivering and writing down histories and knowledge from his weirwood ship. Yeah, lots of connections there.
The crew member who lost his mind, I think you pointed this out to me, that could be kind of like Hodor.
Could be a reference to Hodor, yeah, that's right. On one of Bran the Blessed's crew members, like Bran the Broken's companions, loses his mind when they reach this new world, which could potentially be a reference to the Hodor moment that we'll see in the Winds of Winter when they reach this other world that Bran reaches and scrambles his brain.
So Bran does mean burning sword. There's some more stuff. So yeah, I've mentioned this before, but in Norse it's Brander, and in Old French it's Bronk, Proto-Germanic Brandas. But basically it means either sword, fiery sword, as in like one that's hot, that's being forged, or a fiery brand. All of these words have a related root. This is interesting because fiery swords are kind of a thing in this story, aren't they?
They are, and it implies Bran as that fiery sword, as Lightbringer itself, which is interesting because Bran himself becomes broken in the same way that Lightbringer, the fiery sword, breaks before it becomes the fiery sword. So Bran breaks, he becomes Bran the Broken, and then he accesses the fire of the gods. So he becomes a fiery Bran after he breaks. So there's a direct parallel across between not Azor Ahai and Bran, but Lightbringer. Like the weapon itself is Bran. Bran is the weapon, not the hero, if that makes sense. So his access to the fire of the gods that he takes, it seems to be potentially that weapon. They tell him, Brynden Rivers essentially tells him that you need to survive to bring about the summer again, and you need to come and learn this greenseeing gift, learn your access to the fire of the gods to save the realms from winter and bring back the summer. So this greenseeing gift, this fire of the gods that he gets, it seems that he is a weapon. It seems to be the weapon against the others that will need to be used.
So Sean, here with 1,000 voices, is piping up that Suthr, the fire giant, his burning sword is called Sumurbrander, as in like the burning sword that ends summer. So the sword that slays the season, if you will.
There you go.
And I haven't talked about it in a while, but Jon is Suthr. In many ways. So Bran is a vessel of the fire of the gods. So he is like the sword that gets lit on fire. I guess that's the way to say it. The fire of the gods concept in A Song of Ice and Fire, the two manifestations of it are Lightbringer the sword, or you might say Lightbringer the meteor sword, because the meteor is an important part of that fire of the gods thing, or the weirwood. And the weirwood has the magic of the gods in it. And so that's where you get that great, all-important Grey King legend, where the thunderbolt sets the tree on fire, because that's the meteor sword lighting the tree on fire. And we do think that that's essentially the sequence. Azor Ahai, being like the fiery sword, he goes into the tree. He stabs the tree with his spirit sort of interjection and sets the thing on fire in a sort of mythical sense. And so Bran, that is the burning sword that Bran is. He is that burning thing inside the tree. All the greenseers are. Yeah, there's that third eye full of terrible knowledge that burns that we talked about. So if Brander means burning brand, the burning brand is a comet symbol, just to sort of tie all this together. Obviously, like I said, the comet, a symbol of the fire of the gods in all cultures, because it's a star that falls to earth. And the stars are always regarded as gods or the celestial realm or something, the heavenly lights. So when one falls to the earth, it's very exciting. It's very special. And so the burning brand, Aeron Damphair, You know, he says, it is a sign, but from our God, not theirs. A burning brand it is, such as our people carried of old. It's the flame the drowned God brought from the sea. So it is the fire that comes out of the sea or goes into the sea back and forth. So that ties it to the idea of the weirwood net sea. And it proclaims the time to go forth into the world with fire and sword. Just to tie all this back to Lightbringer, comet, burning brand, fiery sword, all the same thing. Now, that Jon and Ygritte scene, I've talked about it many times, so I won't go into detail here. But you guys remember, he looks up the mountain, and he sees the campfire that Ygritte is at. It looks like a red star. And so Corin says, when you get up there, throw down a burning brand. And so this is already like Jon's going to climb up into space and like slay the red star and throw it back down to earth or something like that. Then when he gets up to the top, he meets Ygritte, who has the fiery red hair. So she's like, this red star is like the fire moon, essentially, the moon that cracks to birth dragons. But then when he gets up there, he fights against one of the other wildlings, and that wildling has a burning brand. It's literally written burning brand. He attacks Jon with the burning brand. So Corin points, he's like, throw down the burning brand when you get up to the red star. And he goes up there, and sure enough, there is the burning brand. And so he fights him, defeats him, and then throws down the fire. So it's an important symbol of the fire of the gods coming to the earth. And that's what Bran did. He fell from the tower. He climbed the tower into the heavens. He saw the sun and the moon doing something bad or whatever, you know, and then he falls down to earth. And as you pointed out earlier in the outline, it's him falling to earth that begins the sequence of opening his third eye and possessing this magic for mankind.
Absolutely, yeah, and we'll talk a bit more about that when we get down to the Icharus and Prometheus stuff. It's that grasping for the fire of the gods, bringing it back down to humanity, and that's essentially what Bran becomes. And this is a good little segue into the next part, because Bran is that green man who's obtained the fire of the gods. He becomes this fiery green man, and when we look to folklore and myth, we see a king of winter is something which is a green man which is set on fire at the end of winter to bring about the spring. And so we have this Bran being this green man who obtains the fire of the gods, becomes this sort of symbolic king of winter, and uses it to slay the season and bring back the spring.
And then the last thing I had on this was the gargoyle similarity. He looks at the gargoyles that fell and he's like, oh, it fell just where I did. So it creates this parallel between him and the gargoyle. And the gargoyle, of course, they're fiery-eyed stone monsters. They're dragons on Dragonstone. So it's the same kind of idea. They come down from the moon at the top of the tower in Bran's dream. So it further compares him to something that sounds like a meteor falling to the earth. So Bran the Wicker Man, and here, this was the slide from what we were just talking about. Summer with the comet, Bran on the gargoyle, almost as if he was riding a dragon, almost. Let's see here. So then, Wicker Man. So the Wicker Man, there is this big thing, okay? Julius Caesar said the Druids burned people in the Wicker Man, but he might have been spreading a calumny for political reasons, and it's hard to know or tell. There is no proof. The Druids did perform human sacrifice, it does seem like, on occasions. But what's important for our purposes here is the folkloric idea. But I just wanted to add the disclaimer. We don't know if the Druids really did this. However, you can see from the art, the idea of the Wicker Man is you stuff a person or people inside a wooden effigy, and then you burn the thing. Now, what's more common is just to burn a wooden effigy without the murder. A little easier, your zoning permits are easier to get for that. And so you see that like Burning Man festival in America. It goes back much older in Britain with the Beltane festival, and specifically the King of Winter. King of Winter, quote unquote, is a small wicker man that you make at the end of the harvest season, keep through the winter, and burn in the springtime to help usher in the spring. So I've always talked about this with Jon, as far as like he's going to be a King of Winter, and he's going to be like a fire white, which is kind of like a burning wicker man. He's going to help, you guys are familiar with that. This also does refer to Bran, though. Bran is a wicker man, too. He's carried around in a wicker basket, which is meant for firewood. So it implies Bran as firewood, which is what a wicker man is. A series of chisel-cut handholds made a ladder in the granite of the tower's inner wall. Hodor hummed tunelessly as he went down, hand under hand, Bran bouncing against his back in the wicker seat that Maester Luwin had fashioned for him. He had gotten the idea from the baskets the women used to carry firewood. So, Bran is firewood. Okay. And because he's going to burn the weirwood net, that's the sense in which Bran is firewood. He's going to set the thing on fire and cleanse it. Is that how you'd say it, Eldric?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Absolutely. Even as I look to the image on the left, when we look to the giant effigy of this man and people inside it, it reminds me of Bran himself and Hodor and their relationship as well, with Hodor being this giant man and Bran passing into him, the wicker cage aspect of him riding Hodor.
It's the same thing because, him riding in this wicker basket is foreshadowing for him being in the weirwood root basket. And him skin changing Hodor, who's like a giant, is foreshadowing for him skin changing the trees that are like giants. Hodor is silent in a way too, because all he can say is one word. He can't really communicate.
Yeah.
Very similar.
And as we're about to discuss, Hodor is very much a King of Winter symbolic character as well. So it's,
And so Bran, being a summer king, skin changes the King of Winter because Hodor is a Norse winter god. So it's a summer king inside of a winter king. It's pretty funny. Yeah. So it's like a Russian nesting doll. And then finally, I mentioned, while we're talking about Bran being like a wicker man and all this stuff and a tree man, Bran sounds like the word branch, okay? Which would imply Bran as a stick man and maybe a bird that sits on a branch. So check out this quote. She was holding one of his hands, and this is Bran when he's in his coma. Catelyn is holding his hand, and Jon is coming to visit. It looked like a claw, so think of a bird claw. This was not the Bran he remembered. The flesh had all gone from him. His skin stretched tight over bones like sticks, and that's how bird legs look. But also bones like sticks, like a wicker man. Under the blanket, his legs bent in ways that made Jon sick. His eyes were sunken deep into black pits. There's Bran the Blessed with the black, the pools for eyes, I guess. The pits were the nose. Open, but they saw nothing. His fall had shrunken him somehow. He looked half a leaf, so he's like a tree. And he was also shaking like a leaf when he reached out for summer after coming out of the coma dream. So there's another Leafy Bran reference. And then the best thing, yet under the frail cage of those shattered ribs, his chest rose and fell. Naga's ribs are a shattered rib cage, but it's a weirwood hall that Grey King lives in. So Bran's body is a weirwood hall, okay? Because that's where Bran's going to live in eventually, is in a weirwood. Yep. So check this quote out. I found this one like late at night the other night.
Hodor lifted Bran as easy if he were a bale of hay and cradled him against his massive chest. He always smelled faintly of horses, but it was not a bad smell. His arms were thick with muscle and matted with brown hair. Hodor, he said again. Theon Greyjoy had once commented that Hodor did not know much, but no one could doubt that he knew his name. Old Nan had cackled like a hen when Bran told her that, and confessed that Hodor's real name was Walder. No one knew where Hodor had come from, she said, but when he started saying it, they started calling him by it. It was the only word he had. We see Bran directly referred to as a bale of hay, which, is exactly what the King of Winter would be, a hay or straw man, a man made of hay or straw. I know we discussed Hodor's connection to horses and the idea of the weirwoods being a symbolic horse, a Sleipnir horse, a wooden horse that one can ride as well. So there's good connections across to that too.
Yeah, because again, Bran is getting fed to the weirwood, and horses eat hay. That was why I was laughing. It's just like, Bran is hay. Hay gets fed to horses. Hodor is the stable boy. He feeds hay to horses all day. And so now what's he do? He feeds Bran to the weirwood face.
Yeah, quite literally, as we're about to discuss with the weirwood door, the black gate, when Hodor is the one that passes him through into the weirwood, and feeds him to the symbolic horse that is the black gate.
The horse is wicker.
Yeah.
Bran's a wicker man. And Hodor smells like horses, so he's...
Yeah, look at that.
And then there's a reference even to Mance's weirwood cage, which is another version of the same idea. Someone in a burning weirwood cage. That's Bran burning the weirwood net from the inside out, like a cauldron. And so this line, when Hodor's coming to get him, it says, on the wall beside the door hung a basket stoutly made of wicker and leather. So it's just a quick line, but again, on the wall beside the door, beside the black gate door, on the wall, Mance is hung in a weirwood basket and burned. So just want to say that. There's doors all through the walls of the door at Castle Black. I always think of the Black Gate as the significant wall door. He was burned at Castle Black, not the Nightfort, but whatever, close enough. And then there's, Green Garen was hung in a gilded cage. Green Garen. Garen is like a Garth name. So the golden cage is like a burning cage. Very similar.
We even see Beric, I haven't got the quote, but I reckon he's described when he's in his weirwood cave as being within a fiery cage as well. So it's like
this sword is moving and leaving so many streaks that it looks like he's in a fiery cage. Exactly right.
Yeah. And weirwood warrior. Like it's so, very interesting stuff.
Talking about Egg wears a straw hat and puts one on his mule. Yeah, Maester the mule.
Oh, yeah.
That's cool. Okay, so Bran and Hodor time. All right, life of a YouTuber. So Bran and Hodor could equal a knight. Go ahead and read this one for us here.
Once he had been taught to do something, he did it deftly. His hands were always gentle, though his strength was astonishing. You could have been a knight too, I bet, Bran told him. If the gods hadn't taken your wits, you would have been a great knight. It's very interesting to read that, knowing what's going to happen with Bran and Hodor and the gods taking his wits. Essentially, Bran becomes a god within the Weirwoods, travels through time, and takes Hodor's wits. So he is the god that takes his wits moving forward in the story. So that's just great foreshadowing by George straight away. Great writing.
Yeah, I don't even think about that, but you're right. I was thinking about the fact that like Dunk was a great knight, and Dunk is Hodor's ancestor, and Bran sees Dunk in the one vision of a knight as tall as Hodor standing on his tippy toes to kiss young old man, basically. Yeah, you can see the wicker basket in both of these, by the way. Let's see. And then his hands were gentle and deft. Like Hodor is skilled and strong, so like. If he's got the right pilot, And then there's this one here. Bran stared resentfully at the sweating boys below. If I still had my legs, I could beat them all. He remembered the last time he'd held a sword in his hand, when the king had come to Winterfell. It was only a wooden sword, but he'd knocked Prince Tommen down 100 times. Wooden sword isn't a burning brand. That's what it turns into. Sir Roderick should teach me to use a poleaxe. If I had a poleaxe with a big long haft, Hodor could be my legs. We could be a knight together. I think that unlikely, Maester Luwin said. Bran, when a man fights, his arms and legs and thoughts must be as one. But of course, Bran's going to invade Hodor's mind and take care of that. So
they do become one. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, good foreshadowing for that as well. Absolutely.
And then directly picking up from that quote, he responds, Bran says, there was a knight once who couldn't see. He said stubbornly, old Nan told me about him. He had a long staff with blades at both ends, and he could spin it in his hands and chop 2 men at once. Symeon Star Eyes, Luwin said as he marked numbers in a book. When he lost his eyes, he put star sapphires in the empty sockets, or so the singers claim. Bran, that's only a story, like the tales of Florian the Fool, a fable from the age of heroes. You must put these dreams aside. They will only break your heart. And then he's like, oh, yeah, I dreamed about the three-eyed crow, the one with 3 eyes. He flew into my bedchamber and told me to come with him, so I did. We went down to the crypts. Then they go down to the crypts, Eldric, and they see the hellhounds fighting, which is exactly what Symeon Star Eyes went to the wall to do, to see the hellhounds fight. So now we see, this is the one where Shaggy Dog is leaping out of the darkness, and it says... he's a leaping shadow. There's a lot of shadow stuff. The darkness sprang at them. Fur as black as the pit. Then summer came, shooting from the darkness like a leaping shadow. Then they're rolling around and fighting. And it says shadow wolves 20 feet tall fought on the wall and roof. So the roof is like the wolves are in the sky. They're celestial sky wolves fighting. On the wall is the reference to Symeon Star Eyes. So now we begin to see, okay, well, what is Symeon Star Eyes talking about? Here's one picture. Here's the other picture. Same picture. Let me just do this again. Okay.
The moons are even in the same spot.
There's even 2 moons. Yes. So Symeon, I believe, is the world tree. He has star eyes, and he is like the frozen world tree that's probably at the heart of winter. His 2 blades that he can spin around, those are the moon sickles. Because the moons are sickles like the blade of a knife in Bran's chapters quite often. And so, again, the whole point of the world tree is that it's a celestial axis, which means the moons revolve around the tree as if they were fruit of the tree. Or in the case of this metaphor, they're like blades that he can spin around and chop people with. So what does this tell you about the cosmology? It tells you that the moon meteors that were like swords that fell down, the way to use those like a weapon is to stand inside the tree, is to become the tree, and then you can use the moon meteors as weapons. That's how I interpret it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the same thing. Because that's exactly what we see Bran doing with Hodor. is become like sort of slipping inside the gentle giant. The weirwoods are giants. He slips inside him and then uses him to fight as a knight as well. So yeah, it's slipping into that tree and then utilizing the moons as weapons as well. It makes me wonder if Symeon Star Eyes is a reference to being like Hodor, who's being controlled by a greenseer, or because he's got no eyes, and he's referred back to Hodor right after we hear about this person. Two become one, and the mind becomes the inside the warrior sort of thing. So yeah, it's quite interesting, the Symeon Star Eyes one.
It does start to make you wonder if Cold Hands really is just a meat sack that Blood Raven is piloting. I'm against that. I think Cold Hands is his own zombie or whatever, but I can't say that for sure. So, and you have more extensive theories about this being a thing that people used to do. Greenseers controlling giants or controlling soldiers to fight. It does make sense, and we see the pattern over and over and over and over and over and over. The Duncan egg pattern of the little kid and the giants, even Tyrion and Shagga. And we're going to get to Doran in a second. I've got that locked and loaded for you.
Yeah, so one of my theories, for those that haven't heard, I've suggested that perhaps the fire of the gods that Bran needs to learn is the ability to resurrect the kings of winter to fight on his behalf. The green man controlling the grey giants to fight and rise up as giants from beneath the earth, which is something that greenseers are said to be able to do, wake giants in the earth. And yeah, I'm yet to make a video on this, but yeah, there's a lot of connections, like you said, back to like green children or greenseer symbolic children controlling stone giants or grey giants.
Again, the Titan, green stone giant. And remember, Arya looks at him and says, oh, he could easily step over the walls of Winterfell.
Yeah. Arya even thinks, I can remember the old Nan telling me the stories of the Titan back in Winterfell. Not like he told me back in Winterfell, but telling them about a Titan back in Winterfell. But we're about to go through a really interesting symbolic character crossover that's meant to represent Bran and Hodor. And that seems to play out quite a bit throughout the series, even with Cersei and the Mountain. She's this symbolic child with a stone giant fighting on her behalf. So the Symeon Star Eyes, it wasn't until just now that I realised perhaps Symeon Star Eyes is like this Hodor figure in the ancient past, that a green king, a broken green king, a Bran the Broken maybe, or someone was able to fight using this person who had lost his eyes. He can't see, but someone within can.
Well, Night's King, he bound his brothers to him with strange sorceries. So
yes, yep,
that could be a part of it. And Night King might not be corporeal. Like the whole Night's King, Night Queen love affair, I'd say it's more likely than not happening inside the Weirwood Net, because this is Azor Ahai going into the Weirwood Net and becoming Night's King. And this is Corpse Queen seems to be Nissa Nissa's spirit. So they're both dead. They're both in the Weirwood Net, and the others come from the Weirwoods, but they are the children of Night's Queen. So the way that all ties together to me, and I'm sorry if my Night's Queen live stream was a little jumbled for some of y'all. It was a little jumbled, but that's how it works out. And I should have said this right at the beginning. Night's Queen and Azor Ahai, it would make sense to me if they are spirits in the Weirwood Net, and Night's Queen is siphoning his power and using that to project, to give the Green Man spirits bodies. Okay, so that they can be warriors. So the others, Symeon Star Eyes, he is an other, basically. He's got star blue eyes, and he's a warrior that's being controlled, piloted by somebody you can't see or something like that. Yeah, so to me, that's Night King in the Weirwood Net, or even Night's Queen, if you want to say, controlling her others.
Yeah, banding his brothers to his will. Yeah, that's right. And even the help that the children of the forest are said to have given the last hero and his companions was the ability to band together. They helped the first Night's Watch band together, which is odd wording, odd choice of words. When you hear that the Night's King could have potentially been the last hero, he bound his brothers. So we have this banding together, the bounding of the brothers. There's a potential for, yeah, exactly.
And I think that I might have just explained that more clearly than in the 3-hour live stream I did about the subject. So it's always good to follow up, cross the T's, dot the I's. So, of course, Symeon Star Eyes makes us think of Simon Peter. Simon Peter, of course, the first apostle of Christ. Symeon means one who hears. Simon and Symeon are the same name. So Hebrew Symeon means one who hears. And of course, Bran hears the whispered voice of the old gods. Peter, or Petra, means the rock. And think of the omphalos, the navel stone of the world idea, in the way that George is used. I'm not saying that's Simon Peter is what that's meant. I'll explore that symbolism another time. But the idea of giving Symeon Star Eyes the name ties him to the idea of the rock. So this is another symbol of the cosmic axis, is the navel stone of the world. Can be a mill, can be a whirlpool, something that turns or demarcates, that's like a pillar.
Like a cyclical, object, yep.
So I think that just sort of tightens up the interpretation of Symeon as a world tree with 2 moon blades. And also the moon blades are rocks that he throws. So great piece of art, unattributed. It comes from a Norse mythology website with tons of great art that all looks by the same artist, and it's not credited. So again, I hope this is not AI. It does not look like AI to me. I think it is just uncredited artwork, but it is. That's Hodor, or Hodr, I should say. Hodr. There you go.
Hodor, yep.
He is the blind god of winter, darkness, and death in Norse mythology. And he is famous for killing Balder. And Balder is, of course, the shining, beautiful god of summer. They are brothers in some versions of the story. And Hodor kills him with a mistletoe spear. And mistletoe, it's sort of, again, like Achilles being like the one spot where he could get hurt. Mistletoe is the one thing that can injure him, and Loki tricks him. He doesn't want to kill Balder. They're having sport because Balder's invincible, so all the gods are throwing stuff at him and like, I can't be killed. And Hodor is sad he can't play in the games because he's blind, but Loki's like, I'll help you. And so he puts the mistletoe spear in his hand and ends up killing Balder. So this is all cycle of the season stuff. The winter god just killed the summer god. So what happens when Balder dies? This is the beginning of Ragnarok, which is like the long night.
Yeah, it's everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it really paints Hodor as a king of winter character, a god of winter, this winter associated person. And as we're about to see, George even backs this up with a very descriptive passage in I think it's in A Dance with Dragons when he's approaching Bloodraven's cave.
Correct.
We get this line. Hodor walked with one eye frozen shut, his thick brown beard a tangle of hoarfrost, icicles drooping from the ends of his bushy moustache. One gloved hand still clutched the rusty iron longsword he had taken from the crypts of below Winterfell, and from time to time he would lash out at a branch, knocking loose a spray of snow. Hodor, he would mutter, his teeth chattering. As you can see, we get Hodor painted as this king of winter. He's got this one eye frozen shut, so he's got a frozen ice eye. We have a king of winter named Brandon Ice Eyes. We even have a Jon or One Eye as well in the crypts.
Oh, true. Yep.
We then hear that Hodor's thick brown beard became a tangle of hoarfrost, icicles drooping from the ends of his bushy moustache, so he gets this snow beard, like the King of Winter Edric's snow beard that we hear about as well. And this icy, one-eyed, icy man is holding a rusty iron longsword that he had taken from the crypts of Winterfell. So he even has a King of Winter's sword in his hand as he's passing through. This rusty iron longsword as well is rusted red and it's a red and black sword. So it's almost like a Lightbringer-esque King of Winter sword. He looks very much like a Long Night hero right here as this King of Winter, and he lashes out at a branch and attacks the trees, marking the trees as well. So yeah, it's lots of good stuff here. It happens twice actually. We even hear Hodor's blade was much older. We're speaking about his sword, a huge heavy piece of iron, dulled from centuries of neglect and well spotted with rust. He could swing it for hours at a time. There was a rotted tree near the tumbled stones that he had hacked half to pieces. Even when he went outside, they could hear him through the walls bellowing Hodor as he cut and slashed at his tree. He's got this tree association as well, and it's a rotted tree, which depends on how you look at the weirwood net. Potentially, the weirwood net is rotten in a way as well. Like it's potentially like a sickness that's infested the tree itself, like a rot as well. So yeah, it's really interesting.
This is going back to the Brander definition of Bran as a sword. He uses a sword when he's in Hodor. And so it's like the fire of the gods inhabiting and breathing life into this giant, right? Waking the giant. He's got the sword, And what does he do with the sword? He's always attacking the tree, the rotted tree, the cleansing fire of the gods being used to cleanse a weirwood net. And it even says hacked it half to pieces. So you get the splitting idea of the original weirwood net split. Besides the references to all those kings of winter, a nice catch on John One Eye, it's also reference to Hodr, the blind god, because he's got his eyes shut. So there's that. And then you see this whole bit about the rusty iron longsword. So again, this is the Lightbringer weapon that Brandor has. And if you, it's probably not intentional, but if you combine Bran and Hodor, you get Brandor, which is Brander, the burning sword. So that's probably just a coincidence. It is funny that George is trying to give us the Hodor clue here. Hodor. I mean, it's so close to saying hold the door. Like he's trying to give it to us. It's so funny.
So close.
Okay, so then we see also Bran Hodor, doing a Mithras burning brand thing, which is another Lightbringer reference. So the moon was a black hole in the sky, wolves howled in the woods, sniffing through snowdrifts after dead things, murder of ravens, blah, blah, blah. Red sun rose and set and rose again, which is the Sun King rose and set and rose again. Okay, this is a resurrecting Sun King language here. And then it says, under the hill, Jojen brooded, Mira fretted, Hodor wandered through the darkness with a sword in his right hand and a torch in his left, or was it Bran wandering? So this is a reference to Mithras. Forgive the tiny shriveled stone balls of Mithras. I'm sure that's not doing him justice. But Mithras is an important figure because he is a big inspiration for Azor Ahai and Lightbringer. He's born from a stone egg, the cosmic egg, which you can see on the right. He's usually paired with the zodiacal constellations. And he has, yes, a torch and a sword, or a burning brand and a fiery sword. So two versions of the same idea. The other thing about the Mithras is that his cult was always revered underground. The Mithraims were always underground in crypts and sepulchres and things like that. In Rome, it was very popular for a certain time. So the idea of Hodor wandering around underground with a sword and a torch is clear reference to Mithras. And John has a lot of Mithras references as well, especially with the pacts and truces part of Mithras, because he's the god of covenants. John makes lots of covenants. So this is just another Lightbringer, Azor Ahai reference, specifically attached to Bran inside of Hodor. That's kind of the thing I want to harp on, just like with the other, with Hodor as a king of winter, but with a red sword. Oh, the other thing I will say about the first Hodor quote, where he's got the sword. Remember, the red swords are supposed to keep the vengeful spirits of the kings of winter in their crypts, right? So when you take the sword off, it lets the spirit out. Where did the spirit go? Well, it went into the guy holding the sword, because Hodor is turned into a king of winter. So it's kind of like, if you think in sort of magical personification here, that's what George is saying. Like, oh, the spirit is out, and now it's inhabiting Hodor, and he is now, Hodr. He is he is the King of Winter champion.
Yeah, that's right. It's interesting also that he relays Mithras back to Hodor, the King of Winter. And the King of Winter, I've suggested, and I think you did as well, that potentially at the bottom of the crypts we have petrified greenseers that have turned to stone. And it's interesting that Hodor comes out of the crypts as this Mithras figure who's born from stone. It's sort of, there's almost a crossover there as well. There's stone rebirth thing, this King of Winter being born from stone.
And and of course, waking dragons from stone, it comes from this too. But yeah, I can always count on you. You're right, to highlight the stone aspect.
I find it everywhere.
There it is. The last part about the Hodor stuff, as I put our Hodor art up on here. As we talked about in the Rickon stream, there's a pretty good developing theory that he's going to hold the Black Gate door, or a similar door if there's more of those in other places, but probably that one. So his original name is Walder, which might be a reference to a wall door if Hodor is hold the door. And of course, this is Tim's find. Walder Frey is the Lord of the Crossing at the Twins. And,
That's really
and
cool.
the Black Gate is the crossing. So if Hodor holds that door and gets like eaten by the Black Gate or becomes part of it or whatever, dies there, then he's the Lord of the Crossing. So that's pretty cool. And we talked about the Bloody Gate. You explained how the Bloody Gate is a Weirwood analog and a Black Gate analog. And we've got a knight there who like lives at the gate and demands oaths to pass or won't let people pass. And his name is Brendan. So when Hodor holds the door, it's going to be Brandon inside of him doing it.
Yep, that's right. and becoming the Knight of the Gate. Yeah, that's right.
So Hodor will be the Knight of the Gate when he holds the Black Gate. He'll be the Knight of the Black Gate, essentially. I also think Cold Hands is kind of like a Knight of the Gate as well, wearing all black and sort of guarding the door from the one side at least.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Oh, I made some art for this. Okay, so here's Walder Frey, Lord of the Crossing, right? So here's the Black Gate, which is a wrinkled old man, just like Walder.
Oh, yeah.
And it is the Lord of the Crossing between the wall. And so here is Hodor, aka Walder, holding the door at the crossing. So just sort of to spell out the symbolism that we're talking about. And then here's Cold Hands, and the one on the left, of course, is made by MC Illustrations, he's your friend. Is he in a band with you too?
Yeah, so we've been friends for a long, long time. We've played in bands together forever. We've recorded music still now. We still do it. We recorded all my music on my channels recorded. He plays all the drums in those. I do all the guitars and bass and keys and stuff, and he's been drawing art for the channel too. He used to draw in high school, so he's recently picked up a digital art thing and started drawing pictures for me. And the one on the left, that Cold Hands there, that's by him, and he's done a great job, I thought.
Yeah, this definitely is sick because it's warrior Cold Hands. Like, this is the one, he's got the sword out, he's ready to kill some whites, which I like, so I appreciate that. Well done. You can see it, Knight of the Gate, all in black, kind of works. So
so I've noticed there's a direct parallel between Bran and Doran Martell, even phonetically, and then their giant protectors. We've got Hotah, Hotah, and Hodor. So we've got Doran and Hotah and Bran and Hodor. As soon as you start reading, the symbolism, the parallels start to kick in, because the first chapter we meet Doran. He's sitting in a wheelchair. He's lost the use of his legs. He's got this almost Fisher King wound in a similar way to Bran has. He's lost this use of his legs. He's sitting in a wheelchair, and he's sitting beneath a blood orange tree, which symbolically represents a weirwood, the bloody tree of the weirwood. And what is he doing beneath this bloody tree as he sits? He's watching the children play. And this is reminiscent of Bran being down in the weirwood cave, sitting in his weirwood throne beneath the bloody tree, watching the children in the cave of Bloodraven. I
told you this last night, Eldric, we were talking, or yesterday afternoon, whatever it was. We're night for one of us and noon for another, because we're... I'm embarrassed to say, and Tim, I hope you're listening to this, I have never heard anyone point out that, like, the blood oranges are like the bloody leaves of the weirwood tree, so it makes this a bloody tree. I've always thought about them as like moon meteors and stars and things dropping from the celestial canopy and all that. It's a bloody tree. It's just so right there. It's a crippled guy. Sorry, I shouldn't use that word. But like you said, like Bran, he can't really use his legs. And he's sitting under the bloody tree looking at the children. Yeah.
Yeah, it's straight away. It just clicked for me. And then we see references to Doran being made of fruit, because the reason he can't walk is he has gout, which swells the legs and the knee joints and things to the point it's super painful for him. But it's, I can't remember who refers to it, but they see his legs and say that he's got his knee is like an apple, and his legs are turning to melons, and his toes are turning to grapes. So he's this greenseer parallel character who seems to be turning to fruit like a summer king, like the summer king does, providing fruit himself to the land to be eaten. So yeah,
I was thinking of the Jolly Green Giant, who of course is just a version of the Green Man, but he's like literally made of grapes and things. So
there you go. Yeah. So and this greenseer Doran Martell, he's seated in Sunspear at the top of the Tower of the Sun, which we're about to discuss. But when Bran climbs to the top of the first keep, he comes across Jaime, the golden god, and there's sort of like this symbolic sun, this fire aspect, and he grabs it, falls to earth, and grabs that fire of the gods. So it sort of makes the Tower of the Sun represent this tower that people climb to gain the fire of the gods, this greenseer aspect, but it also refers back to the weirwoods as well. The Tower of the Sun would be a weirwood too. They've got the white tower with the fiery canopy at the top. It's a sun tower of its own. Doran Martell, when he thinks he needs to go back there, we get this line. He says, "The prince did not wish his enemies to know how feeble he had grown, and the old palace and its shadow city were full of eyes. Eyes, the captain thought, and steps he cannot climb. He would need to fly to sit atop the Tower of the Sun. So this greenseer character is thinking to himself he needs to be able to fly, which is, what greenseers and skin changers can do, to sit atop this fiery tower. Once again, it's a city full of eyes as well. So we've got all these 1,000 eyes around. Very clear greenseer language being used around all this stuff. And we even get this unusual reference to the Grey King's myth when he's sort of visiting the towers. We get this: the shadows of the afternoon were long and dark, and the sun was red and swollen as the prince's joints before they. So they compare the sun to him, to his joints. So he's this sun. Yeah, didn't even pick that up before. Before they glimpsed the towers of Sunspear to the east. First, the slender spear tower, 150 feet tall and crowned with a spear of gilded steel that added another 30 feet to its height. Then the mighty Tower of the Sun with its dome of gold and leaden glass. And lastly, the dun-coloured sand ship, looking like some monstrous dromond that had washed ashore and turned to stone, which is exactly what the Grey King's ship did. His weirwood boat washed ashore and turned to stone. So we get this Naga's Rib reference, this Greenseer King's Naga's Rib reference at the same time. So we've got lots of Greenseer stuff going on around Doran Martell.
First of all, I forgot to put this in the Naga's Ribs video, so shame on me. But this is a great example of how the symbolic landscape makes things make sense. Like, why would there be a reference to Naga's bones in the middle of Doran? Well, for one, the couple reasons. All the symbolism, because the entire Tower of the Sun and the construction of this city is meant to resemble a solar weirwood tower, essentially. The other thing, though, is Nymeria's journey. When Nymeria comes and she's migrating her whole people to Doran, and then they burn the ships, and then they say, okay, we're living here now. I compared that to the idea of Grey King flipping over his weirwood arc. That's sending the message, we're not going back. This is now a place to live, not a thing to sail in. So it is. It tells us, this helps tie up that idea that Grey King was a migration to the Iron Islands on the Weirwood Arc. But absolutely. For our purposes today, it's greenseer stuff, and we've seen a lot of Grey King references with Bran's rib cage and Bran wanting to captain a ship and all that stuff too. So
phonetically, the names sound very similar. Hotah, Hodor. Hotah is a bearded priest. He's described as having snow white hair, which is like we just discussed it with Hodor. He has that King of Winter symbolism, the snow white beard. Bearded priests are slave soldiers, so they're sort of forced to become soldiers against their will in a way, which is exactly what Hodor becomes. He becomes this slave soldier to Bran. But what's interesting is when Hotah, when he becomes this slave priest, this bearded priest, he weds his ash and iron wife. The ash trees are like a reference to the weirwood, and
because Yggdrasil is an ash tree.
Yes, well said. And it ties back to the idea of wedding the trees. Hotah's wedding this ashen iron wife, this ashy tree, just like Bran weds the tree. So we have there's an association between this giant and a weirwood, or as a weapon, or something like that. But the interesting part is that Hotah, so when he becomes this slave soldier, he becomes branded, which is exactly what Hodor becomes when we have this hold the door moment. We haven't seen it yet, but it seems like good foreshadowing, obviously, that it will happen, obviously. But Bran travels back into the past and brands Hodor. So to become a slave soldier for Bran. So there's lots of different parallels across.
So
Hotah.
I do want to read this quote, but let's go back to this one, because the chat's all like, well, what door is he going to hold? Well, when we met him, here's the quote. That hair was white now, and his body bore the scars of many battles, but his strength remained, and he kept his long axe sharp, as the bearded priest had taught him. She shall not pass, he told himself, and said, the prince is watching the children at their play. He is never to be disturbed when he is watching the children at their play. So we literally meet him doing a hold the door thing. None shall pass, like the Black Knight of Monty Python.
Yep. So. Yeah. Yeah, and it's while Doran, the symbolic greenseer, is sitting beneath a bloody tree in his wooden throne, his wheelchair, watching the children. So it's almost like he's holding the door while Bran is doing whatever he's doing within the weirwood net. So there's some good foreshadowing for the hold the door moment right there.
Yeah, and the sand snakes are kind of got some Mira vibes too. So there might be more to that scene if we go back and look at it.
Yeah, this is all very surface level If I go back and read all of his chapters,
Yeah,
there'd
this
be
is
more, I
just this is
reckon.
a Bran stream, so this is just a cool aside, but it's the parallels are great. And this quote here, there's a few things. The three bells, which you compared to what?
We see the three sisters or the three singers, the three weirwoods that get planted by
Ah,
Gar?
yes.
Yeah, because the three bells have female names and they're singers. When the
Yes.
bells sound,
They have voice and silvery laughter. Yeah. And then they sound like sylph names too. Nara, Nael, those two. And Noon is just moon backwards.
Yeah.
I think.
So,
Anyways. And so he's recalling all this. He could recall the sounds of the bells. The taste of winter cake filled his mouth again. Because Norvos is a northern city. They like bears and forests and things like that. The taste of winter cake. So that sounds a bit, I mean, it's just a wintry thing, but it could be even, weirwood paste idea there. Pine nuts and a bit cherry with nasha to wash it down. Fermented goat's milk served in an iron cup and laced with honey. That actually sounds more like weirwood paste now. Honey is and mother's milk are both mentioned as how it tastes. He saw his mother in her dress, with the squirrel collar, like the children of the forest.
Cool.
The one she wore, but one each year when they went to see the bears dance down the sinner's steps. And he smelled the stench of burning hair as the bearded priest touched the brand to the center of his chest. A brand is also a mark you make on a tree.
Plenty of comparisons over between the giants and the trees, and these are white giants, like the trees are white giants.
The pain had been so fierce he thought his heart might stop. So he's like a heart tree. Only when both edges were sharp enough to shave with did the captain lay down his ashen iron wife. Yawning, blah, 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 straw mattress. I should have gathered up the oranges. The sticky feel of the red juice on his fingers. So that just ties up the weirwood association of the tree. It gives you red hands, like the weirwood red hand leaves. So Hotah also is a lord of the crossing at the green blood when he chops Sari's Oakhart. The green blood swallows up the red, and it's the head that gets swallowed up. So it's like a blood sacrifice to the weirwood. The boat he's on is a green boat with lots of carved mermaids in the woods. So it's Nissa mermaid stuff. It's carved wooden faces like a weirwood. They're the Garen's orphans are supposed to be on there. And Garen, again, a Garth figure in the cage, going back to that. Lots of stuff here. But the main thing is that Hotah, the Hodor figure, is holding the crossing. He's none shall passing it. Okay?
Yep. Exactly.
So,
and I think there's more to be found, but this was a good little, explanation of Bran and Hodor's foreshadowing for the future.
None shall pass. You've got no arms left.
'Tis but a flesh wound.
'Tis but a flesh wound. Ari's Oakhart got chopped up. In 2 swipes. Just 1, 2. Arm, head. Boom, boom. That is mean. Yeah, but the Arya Hotah is going to fight Darkstar and Obara, and that's going to be an interesting one. So we will see how that works.
It's actually interesting now that you say that he gives an arm wound and a neck wound. He chops an arm off and he chops. So those are Hammer of the Waters injuries, the arm and the neck. So
it's the same one that Gregor does to the stable boy in the fight. Yeah, arm and neck. Exactly.
Another King of Wintry giant. Yeah.
That's because, in case you missed it, the Hammer of the Waters was a moon meteor, and it fell on the arm of Doran and also flooded the neck of Westeros. And so you see arm and neck wounds caused by hammers or axes or things like that. Axe being similar to the hammer. So the tower and the bad little boy. Pretty proud of this photoshopping that I did here. This is the scene from the show with Bran falling out of the tower. I added the lightning and the crown of fire. I think I did a pretty good job.
You did. I wouldn't bet I'd do that. Bran is always climbing Winterfell, and he's warned not to climb so often, using the story of the bad little boy who gets hit by lightning. Old Nan tells him this story. He was struck down by lightning for climbing too high, and afterwards the crows came to peck out his eyes. Bran thinks to himself that he's never had that happen, but then eventually Bran climbs too high. He gets thrown from the tower and has the three-eyed crow come to peck an eye directly in his forehead. And a reference to Odin and Mimir's well symbolism and the trading using of the eye to gain the knowledge, the self-sacrifice aspect to gain this knowledge by looking down into the runes. But yeah, essentially Bran becomes this bad boy hit by lightning and gains that fire of the gods. He fell from the first keep, but he was climbing to the broken tower, which was the tower that was actually hit by lightning in Winterfell. And yeah, so he's going to feed the crows. He gains this lightning, this fire of the gods, and this is the fire that will help humanity through the long night that he returns with.
What George is doing is he's taking two towers and overlaying them on top of one another. So there's the first keep tower and there's the broken tower. Broken tower was struck by lightning. That's where Bran feeds the crows. And that's where he was climbing to. But to get there, you have to go through the God's Wood, up a sentinel tree, and then through part of the first keep, and then over to the broken tower. And so he finds Jaime and Cersei on the way. But essentially it's all one tower, essentially. And this tower, the lightning is the fire of the gods, and that's exactly what Bran is getting because he wakes up from this falling dream with the third eye open, right? And so this is all based on tarot. That's the first thing that I have to tell you. And let's see. So here's Jaime's ripped. Look at that butt. It must work out. In any case, so there's Bran dangling out, and there is Bran falling. And here is Bran in the dream, falling and flying, and having his third eye pecked open by the crow. Love this visionary artwork here. It's a reference to two tarot cards and two Odin myths at the same time. Okay. So the bad little boy story says the boy who climbed too high and struck by lightning, the crows pecked out his eyes. And Bran's like, I feed the crows. They never show any interest in my eye. But then the three-eyed raven does peck open his third eye. And this all happens while his two eyes are shut because he's in the coma and opening the third eye. So this is similar to Mimir. Anytime you're giving up physical abilities for spiritual abilities, that's a shamanistic idea. And so that's with Odin and Mimir, he's giving up one of his physical eyes to open his third eye, per se, to drink from the well of Mimir, which gives him sight and knowledge. Odin also hangs on the tree, thereby sacrificing his entire physical body in order to see the runes. Same idea. Odin always wants more magic, and he's always willing to be tortured and mutilated to get it, because that's the shaman's life.
What it takes.
So the thing is, before Bran falls from the tower and gets his third eye opened, which is like Mimir and Odin, he hangs. He hangs from the gargoyle. He hangs upside down from the gargoyle. And hanging upside down is specifically the reference to the Hanged Man. So here are the two tarot cards, the Hanged Man and the Tower. You see the Hanged Man is hanging from the tree. And he's got the one leg open. There's all this mean stuff, but this is based on Odin. Odin frequently is drawn upside down, hanging from Yggdrasil, because he's looking down at the runes and then falling towards them and seizing them up and stuff like that. So that more or less is Odin. And the tower, this is literally the scene here. Bran falling from the tower. There's the lightning at the top. The tower signifies dramatic and traumatic sudden upheaval and change. So this is the insight that is won through shock and trauma, essentially. The things you learn from disasters, sudden upheaval, etc. And so the crown is blown off, like it's like the head, your wig is flipped, essentially, by this new insight. The old ways are dying. You're falling from the tower. And so you see, obviously, the falling, flying idea come through here. And then sometimes the tower card is a burning tree. It can be either a burning tree or a burning tower. And you still see with the tree, there's the top broken off. So it's the same idea. So this really ties into the Grey King myth of the lightning striking the trees, setting it ablaze. It's the fire of gods, the fire of the gods that man could possess now. And you even look at the two people falling and you're like, oh, it's Bran and Euron,
Yeah.
That's the tower, and that's the scene here. And then what George does is he creates all these parallel tower locations at Queenscrown, at the Nightfort, and then at Bloodraven's Cave. And they all have these same symbols of, well, we'll get to it. But before we do, we're going to bring in two other myths that are related to this setup, which is Icharus and Prometheus. Take it away.
So the first being Icharus. Icharus, most people know the myth, but we'll run through it. We've got Icharus. He's a winged man who essentially flies too high. The story of Icharus goes that his father Daedalus is tied to the myth of the Minotaur. He in a roundabout way, causes the Minotaur to be created. I won't go down that road, but he's then tasked with building a maze to maintain the Minotaur, to keep at the center of this maze. And when finished, Minos imprisons Daedalus and Icharus, his son, at the top of the tower, at the top of a tower for eternity.
So shout out to Magor. You know, he just killed the Masons, but similar idea.
Yeah. It was because they built it and knew the secrets. Is that the reason that they got locked up?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, yep. So that carries. So while they're at the top of this tower for eternity, Daedalus, because he's this master inventor within myth, he constructs wings for Icharus and himself, I think, to fly off the top of this tower out of feathers and wax. Icharus is warned, like his dad says to him, don't fly too high. He even says, don't fly too low. You need to maintain like a good, consistent height. But gives him this warning, and almost a warning of like hubris, like don't fly too close to the sun. We all know that sort of myth from in general life. But what Icharus does is he does fly too close to the sun. He reaches up too high, gets too close to the sun, and falls down into the sea after his the wax in the wings basically burn and melt away. I thought this was a great parallel across to Winterfell, who, you know, Winterfell is described as this stone labyrinth, which goes back to the Minotaur aspect, the labyrinth aspect of this beneath this tower. You know, Bran climbs once again too high. He gets too close to Jaime, the Jaime who's described as a symbolic sun god, a golden god, this symbolic sun aspect. Bran flies too high like Icharus, touches the sun and gets thrown down. Icharus falls into the sea and Bran falls to his death, or not his death, close to his death, and can access the Green Sea.
I would just want to emphasize the Jaime sun thing. In Bran's dream version of this incident, Jaime really is a sun god. His face is shining like the sun. It's an obvious thing because lions and golden lions, and Jaime is sort of Apollo-like and all that. But it's specifically called out in the dream. So he's climbing to the sun and then falling. He's flying with wings unseen, as if where are your wings? Well, they melted off, you know? So... It's pretty good stuff.
And just like Icharus and Daedalus, Icarus's father warning him not to fly too high, Bran is consistently warned by his father and his mother not to climb too high as well. So direct call back to the Icharus myth. And if nothing else, you can see how well George works several different myths over several different cultures into one story. It really is incredible, and it speaks to why it resonates so strongly with all of us. It's so good.
Well, so George he's got the same vision that we're trying to have, which is we're looking for the themes and the archetypes. When you train yourself to look at that, then you can see easily the similarities between all these myths. And it's that common myth theme that he's drawing from. So once he says that Bran is a character of the myth theme who obtains the fire of the gods. And so he looks at all sorts of characters that aspire to, that obtain it, that sail to the other world, and he finds this conjunction of themes and then ties it all together. So yeah, it's a brilliant kind of literary alchemy, and that is what my entire channel and yours and many others are basically dedicated to trying to tease out. Besides just talking about the story, it are these myth themes and stuff. So,
and then George goes and creates his own myths in world by separating the stories out and creating. It's incredible.
Right, like the bad little boy and the Grey King and all this stuff.
Yeah, all these different myths from the same, incredible stuff.
But just to emphasize the labyrinth is where the Minotaur lives. Winterfell is a labyrinth. So below this tower that he's climbing to is the labyrinth. So it's very tight to the Icharus thing. And it also begs the question of who's the Minotaur. I've talked about that as like Azor Ahai and the Weirwood Net is the Minotaur. But in a way, it's almost kind of Bran. He's going to play the role. So Azor Ahai burned the Weirwood Net originally and set it on fire. Bran's gonna burn it to like cleanse the rot. So there's a parallel there. And Bran is sort of like the thing that lives in Winterfell that is like a monster, because he's also like Fenrir. We're gonna bring up Fenrir in a minute. Fenrir. And then, I don't know how you double trill the R's on that one, but there's a monstrous aspect to Bran too.
There is. He even has his own monster. Like Cold Hands describes himself as Bran's monster. I am your monster, Bran Stark, you know.
And then Prometheus.
Yes, the Prometheus myth would be the other one that George is heavily drawing on for Bran. So the story of Prometheus goes, Zeus takes fire away from humanity, and Prometheus is the one who climbs Mount Olympus back to claim this fire back from him. He climbs to the top, reaches the fire of the gods and brings it back to humanity to benefit humanity. And once again, this is Bran climbing the tower, grabbing the fire of the gods, touching the sun god Jaime, falling and gaining this fire of the gods. And it will be this fire of the gods that will benefit humanity in the same way that Prometheus brought fire back for humanity to benefit. You know, this fire will be what lights them through the long night. There's even an interesting parallel across between Prometheus, who we hear that the first humans were made out of clay in the Prometheus tale, and then we have Bran, and the bad little boy that falls from the tower. Maester Luwin makes a statue out of clay and then throws him from the tower. Not a direct parallel, but you can see the references within the myth itself.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because this is a lot of times the myths get disconnected when professors are teaching them because they don't understand the mythemes. Prometheus stealing fire is the same story as him breathing life into these clay men, which he did.
Yes.
That's what he's doing with the fire. So this is important. And I also made the joke that Luwin kind of did accidental voodoo by making a clay Bran in the tower. It's like, bro.
You're asking for it.
Yeah, and then, of course, Prometheus is chained up as punishment. Yes. George loves to punish everybody who tries to do stuff in this story. And so, Bloodraven is chained up. Bran is chained up. Bran is he's the chained winged wolf at the beginning, and then he's Weirwood Throne chained.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And while chained, is pecked by an eagle for eternity in his liver, which, while not the eye, is probably a reference across to the, Bran being the chained wing.
The ravens are pecking Bran too. They're like his arm, and they're like slightly pecking him too. Yeah. Yeah. It sort of goes back to my theory about Bran waking the Stone Kings again, that clay reference. You're stealing the fire of the gods and using that to breathe fiery men into stone men. Sure. Be damned. Yep.
Yeah.
You're going to win me over here. By the time Winds of Winter come out, I'll be like, those statues are going to rise. You watch. I think I've been on both sides of that twice in the last decade.
The main tower we've been speaking about so far has been the Winterfell Tower, the one that Bran falls from at the first keep, or the Broken Tower. They're sort of, as Dave said, they're overlaid. But it's also described as this stone labyrinth. But you have to this tree to get to the Broken Tower. So this Winterfell's Tower, essentially we've spoke about it pretty well enough. This lightning association, this fire of the gods striking down, always seems to occur around towers and around the greenseer Bran. That theme seems to play out over a few different locations. One of them being Queenscrown, the place we find Bran and company before the wall when they have to hide. So they cross into the Queenscrown, and this is the first place he learns to skin change Hodor after the lightning strike. So we see lightning striking around, and Bran has to skin change Hodor to be able to control the noise, and he essentially slips into Hodor around this same lightning symbolism. And the fact that he's in Queenscrown is interesting as well, because Queenscrown has had a crown painted at the top of this tower, and the crown is often a symbol of like a fiery sun, the fiery sun of the king. It's like a symbol of the sun put on the head of a king or a queen to represent that holy aspect of them. So we see lightning striking. We see this fire at the top of this tower, and it's at the top of this tower that Bran learns to first skin change his giant and utilize this fire of the gods to skin change a giant.
Perfectly said. That's exactly right. The crown is the divine presence. It's the crown of the head. It's the third eye. It's all those things. Like when the king wears a golden crown, it's the sun God's favor on his head that he is exhibiting. And so we see the Tower Tarot card has this crown being blown off the tower because you're reinventing yourself. It's like your old ways of thinking are being blown out, and you got to redo it. You got to rebuild. And so we see Queenscrown is such a perfect image of the tarot card. So this art on the right is the Queenscrown art. You can see the kids here waiting on the causeway. And it looks like the artist literally drew it from the cards. George is creating it from the card by putting the crown on there and then having the lightning strike when they're at the top. And as you say, that is the first time that Bran skin changes Hodor. Then we have staggered and closed his mouth. Is this another Blackgate face reference? I don't know. Yeah. That's what I was looking at. Oh, yeah. And then there's also, Bran also skin changes Summer and gets involved in a fight. There's always a fight involved in these scenes. So when Bran is in the tower having his dream, it's the Cat's Paw assassin fighting with Summer and Cat.
That's true. Yeah.
Then when he's down in the crypts, skin changing the wolves, which is part of the same sequence because he's down in the crypts, that's when Ramsay was burning Winterfell overhead. Here at Queenscrown, there's a fight between Jon and the wildlings that Summer gets involved in. And Summer is like the lightning. The lightning flashes, and then Summer jumps down among them right afterwards, like the lightning bolt. And this happens at the Nightfort, when Summer leaps down through the broken dome. It's right after the moon was trying to be pulled down through the dome. And then we see the wolf jump down through the dome. So the wolf is doing a lot of meteor stuff and always getting involved in a fight. At the Nightfort, the fight was between Mira and Hodor. It's very brief. But Bran is also thinking about these other horror stories, some of which involve slaughter at the same time. So at the Nightfort, there's no lightning, but the clever thing is that, and we'll come back to Queenscrown here because there's more, but at the Nightfort, there's lightning because Bran recalls, he's like, oh, Hodor's bellowing just like when the lightning struck at Queenscrown. I should try to skin change him to keep him quiet again. So he tries the same thing, but it doesn't work. Parallel situations. There is a spiral staircase everywhere. At Winterfell, the spiral goes down to the crypts. At Queenscrown, the spiral stairs go up. At the Nightfort, it's the well that goes down again. Then at Bloodraven's cave, it's the whites. They're marching around the tree in circles. That's where we get the spiral. So going back to Queenscrown, there's a couple of tasty quotes here. Jojen compares the tower's height to the trees in the neck, and Mira says, I feel almost like a giant standing high above the world. Bran, of course, is a giant. And then, or Bran the Blessed anyway. And then it says there are trees in the neck that are twice as tall as this. So they're comparing the tower and the tree because that's the tarot card. There's a maze everywhere. Winterfell, I guess Winterfell itself is the maze. That's why Bran said it was a stone labyrinth. And because it's uneven, it's built on, like you're on the second floor and you're on the fourth floor because the hills switched under you and stuff like that. The maze is in the water at Queenscrown.
Yes, true. Yeah, causeway.
At the Nightfort, is there a maze there? There might not be a maze at the Nightfort, or I might be forgetting. And then, of course, it's just the tunnels at Bloodraven's cave.
You have the wormways beneath the wall.
True. The wormways. The Grate is interesting because it compares to the broken dome at the Nightfort. The murder hole was just above Bran's head as he sat in his basket on Hodor's back. He reached up and grabbed the bars to give them a try. When he pulled down, the grating came out of the ceiling in a cascade of rust and crumbling stone. So he just pulled down the latticework of heaven, and stones came falling down. Hodor, the heavy iron grate gave Bran another bang in the head. So he's getting that bump of the flash of insight happening there. And then again at the Nightfort, there's a broken dome. So it's the shattering of the heavenly dome. And in the Nightfort, the weirwood is reaching up through the dome towards the sun and the moon.
Yeah, that's good. After he pulls that grate down as well, Mira says to him, oh, you're stronger than Hodor, Bran. And it's almost like a little bit of foreshadowing before he skin changes him for the first time that he's going to be as strong as Hodor,
Oh, yeah. The crown, there's no crown on the tower. There's the weirwood tree, which is crowned with red leaves or whatever. But the moon is a crescent in the sky, and that is like a crown. So I was thinking maybe that's the crown for Bloodravens, because it's the reoccurring motif. The moon is a crescent over and over. The roots are like serpents and grave worms. There's also, there's the serpent. There's a thing down in the well at the Nightfort, and Sam the Leviathan coming up. There's dragons under Winterfell. Queenscrown, I'm not sure if there are serpents at Queenscrown. Maybe implied somewhere. Maybe not.
Just going back to the crown as a moon and as a crescent, from memory, the King of Winter's crown is an open circlet, isn't it? It's like almost like a crescent shape.
I've never thought about that. You're totally right.
Yeah.
There's a Walton the Moon King. Stark.
Yep, there is. Yeah.
Cool. That's cool. Nice. So that totally is a crown then. Yeah. On top of the pale sun rising and setting and the weirwood. Very cool. Okay, so Bran is also skin changing Hodor at the Nightfort as he is in the other two places. And then I've pointed out there could be another lightning blast at Bloodraven's cave if the others attack. They probably will at some point because the others move like lightning and strike like lightning. So
it's even included it here with lightning flashing and thunder rumbling while under the hill the broken boy sits with his weirwood throne listening to the whispers. So it's even present. We don't.
There it is. Yep.
Right there.
Totally. And this is a Prometheus art. You guys have seen this before, but there's Prometheus stealing the fire. There's him paying the price. chained up. Here's the full Queenscrown art with the kids in the causeway. There's the well at the Nightfort from the show. I'm glad that they at least got the well in the show. They had Hodor throwing something in there, I'm pretty sure. That was cool. And it's time for Fenrir. So I'm a little proud of this. I was thinking about this a little harder. I was challenging myself to go deeper on Fenrir last night, and I think I came up with something. So there's two things that people have noticed. One, Fenrir is chained, and Bran is a winged wolf who's in chains in Jojen's vision, and Fenrir is chained. Fenrir is going to break free at Ragnarok to fight Odin. And in Norse, the way that they write about Ragnarok is if it has not happened yet, but they know all the facts about it. So they say at Ragnarok, Fenrir will break his chains and he will devour Odin. And then Odin's son Vidar will slay Fenrir by essentially prying his jaws open. So this is all spoken of as a whole story, but it's in the future. So essentially Fenrir, at Ragnarok, all the monsters break loose, including Fenrir. And the other wolves in Norse mythology, Skoll and Hati, they are basically derivative of Fenrir. Fenrir is the original wolf. Originally, they think that he did all this stuff. So he ate the sun and moon and devoured Odin. Remember, Odin is a sun god. So devouring Odin, devouring the sun, same idea. Norse myth is very repetitive like this. Not repetitive, but they do the same thing with George do. It's fractal. Same idea, many iterations. Fenrir was chained through trickery. Tyr, who was also very honest and trustworthy, he basically, it's a complicated thing, but he put his hand in the wolf's mouth so the wolf would allow himself to be bound, thinking that he could break the bounds, but they lied to him about what the bounds were. So he couldn't break free, so he bit Tyr's hand off. And so Tyr is a one-handed war god. Jaime is a war god. He is a supreme battle, fighter and stuff. And Brienne sees him as a golden god, and so does Bran. And of course, he loses the hand that he shoved Bran out the window with. And he even says that to Brienne. I lost the hand that I pushed Bran out the window with. Aren't you happy? So that's kind of like Bran the wolf biting off Jaime's hand. That's as much as I've seen anywhere, Eldric.
Same. It's a good parallel.
But it kind of doesn't go anywhere. It's like, is Jaime's son gonna come kill Bran?
Yeah, it almost just feels like a call out, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't seem to go any further. But I figured some other stuff out. Okay, so Vidar is able to pry Fenrir's jaws open and kill him because he has this iron shoe. And it's made from the scraps of all the other shoes in the world that didn't get used or something. And it's this iron shoe. And so he puts his foot down on the lower jaw of Fenrir and holds it open and then pulls the upper jaw and rips him apart. It reminded me of Jaime's golden hand because they even compared it to Iron Hand, the previous City Watchman. And also the same, it is Vidar's mother who makes his iron shoe. She made somebody else an iron hand. So it could be that that is a further reference, the hand there. But the more important thing is Bran's identity thematically as a devouring wolf. Because Fenrir is like a bad guy, quote unquote. He's Loki's monster. He's basically destroying stuff. So he seems villainous. But George loves to flip this around, okay? So the Weirwoods are like Fenrir, Eldric. They are devouring. Yep. They consume blood and lives, and Bran is becoming like the consuming trees. He is eating human flesh, he's consuming Jojen, and he's consuming Hodor's mind. And how many more sacrifices will be needed? So Bran is a consuming wolf, and the Weirwoods also are consuming wolves. They are ravenous monsters, the demon trees, and Azor Ahai is also the original human inhabitant of the Weirwood net, and he is basically, devouring figure. So that is one thing that I figured out. And then I also thought of the older Garth the Green legends, where it says the oldest tales of Garth Greenhand present us with a considerably darker deity, one who demanded blood sacrifice from his worshippers to ensure a bountiful harvest. In some stories, the green god dies every autumn when the trees lose their leaves. That's the standard Green Man idea. But he's also demanding the blood sacrifice here, just as the Weirwoods demand blood sacrifice. So
absolutely. And if Bran Stark, after the long night, becomes this green king, this King Bran figure, we're not sure how exactly it'll play, but even demand blood sacrifice in a similar way that Garth Green does. Like, we're not sure what the religion of the Weirwoods or the old gods will exist or what it will look like. But if he becomes like a Garth, he could be potentially asking to consume the blood of others to continue the reign of the Green King, perhaps, something like that.
Well, just think of how he's tasting the blood that's offered to the Weirwoods. And that's why I
Yeah.
drew this. Like, he is on the other end of the weirwood mouth drinking that blood. So
Even
his
through
Fenrir
time.
identity is very easily passed on to the weirwood, I would say.
Yes. Yep.
And then Bran also, he does break loose at Ragnarok to destroy and burn the weirwood net. That's what he's going to do. He's in the weirwood cave, chained up with the roots, but he's going to break out of there, and that's going to be good. He is breaking that Ragnarok, but it's good. That's the twist. Like, him devouring the weirwood net is going to be good. He is downloading the greenseer hive mind out of the weirwood net, so he's eating it. He's eating all the greenseers that were in there, including Bloodraven, who is Odin. So just as Fenrir eats Odin, Bran is going to absorb the entire greenseer hive mind, including Bloodraven, and he's going to eat it. That's what I was proud of. Like, now it makes sense.
It does, yeah. That aspect makes sense for sure. Yep, that's good. This next one was really interesting. David pointed this, we're about to talk about the Harvest Feast, which occurs at Winterfell in A Clash of Kings. And it's a very, very interesting scene. David pointed out to me that it almost feels like a greenseer king around the time of the Long Night. We're almost seeing the act of the Age of Heroes play out almost. It's a very... Yeah, as we go through it, you'll see what you mean, but it's very interesting.
As real quickly, this is your homie's other artwork. This is the Winterfell sacrifice that Bran sees in his vision. White-haired woman with a sickle blade, and there you go.
I suppose to begin with, a harvest feast is the main feast that would be brought before the arrival of winter. So we're at the end of summer. We've collected all the vegetables and all the food, and we're having this big feast before winter hits. That's something to remember. So we see Bran presented as almost this green king hosting this summer harvest. So we see Bran raised his voice. He bid them welcome in the name of his brother, the king in the north, and asked them to thank the gods, old and new, for Rob's victories and the bounty of the harvest. 100 more, he finished, raising his father's silver goblet. 100 more, pewter tankards, clay cups, and iron-banded drinking horns clashed together. Bran's wine was sweetened with honey and fragrant with cinnamon and cloves, but stronger than he was used to. He could feel its hot, snaky fingers wriggling through his chest as he swallowed. By the time he set down the goblet, his head was swimming. So this seems like this Green King is consuming some sort of weirwood paste, some Fire of the Gods weirwood paste from this, from his father's cup. And I highlighted that it's sweetening because we see honey often as like a nectar of the gods. And I think even Bran gets fed with honey at one point as well. But I think the clearer thing is that when he drinks it, we see this symbol of the hot snaky fingers wriggling through his chest as he swallowed, which is something I'm pretty sure the hot snaky fingers wriggling through the chest is something we see when Dany consumes Shade of the Evening, I think, and potentially, I can't remember whether Bran does when he has weirwood paste as well.
You're right, it's Dany, but those are parallel experiences, so yeah.
It is, but it's also the fire, that hot, snaky wriggling through his chest. He's consumed the fire of the gods. He's got the fire within him. And when he sits down with his goblet, his head was swimming. So he's tasted this fire of the gods, and he's now swimming in the green sea nearly.
And he's going to start warging out there shortly. So it's definitely implied as a psychedelic drink.
Yeah, and to really emphasize this, we get interesting lines where on the bench below, Winterfell men mixed with small folk from the winter town, friends from the nearest holdfast, and the escorts of their lordly guests. Some faces Bran had never seen before, others he knew as well as his own, yet they all seemed equally foreign to him. He watched them from a distance as if he still sat in the window of his bedchamber, looking down on the yard below, seeing everything, yet a part of nothing. So this Green King's consuming weirwood paste, he's had the fire inside of him, and now he's sitting in his throne watching everything but seeing nothing, which is what Bloodraven's been doing. You know, he can see everything but interact with nothing. He's sort of a part of it but disconnected completely from it as well.
Ties it back to the tower too. Like, looking out the window of the tower is another metaphor for green seeing.
Yes. Yep. Good point.
Looking at, but not a part of it. This is just how Bloodraven watches the world.
Yep, that's right. Yep. And then before long, this greenseer king, Bran, he begins to skin change summer in a waking dream. He thinks to himself, it's too hot here and too noisy, and everyone's getting drunk. Bran itched under his grey and white woolens, and suddenly he wished he were anywhere but here. It is cool in the Godswood now, steam rising off the hot pools, and the red leaves of the weirwoods are rustling. The smells are richer here, and before long the moon will rise and my brother will sing to it. Bran, Sir Roderick said, you don't eat. The waking dream had been so vivid For a moment, Bran had not known where he was. So he's just slipped his skin into summer, sort of unknowingly having a waking dream, as he describes. So you can see the symbols stacking up now. Greenseer King, sitting in his throne, seeing everything, skin changing while he sleeps, having waking dreams.
So, Bran, what is it that you would say that you do here? Well, first thing I do, come into my office and warg out a little bit. Warg out a little bit? What do you mean? Yeah, just sort of stare off into nothing, just kind of drift into my wolf and back, just watch everything, a part of nothing. I see the work on my, anyway, Office Space, shout out. So, yeah, he's tripping. And it gets better as the chapter goes on, because he falls asleep and then goes back into the wolf's dream. And that has an interesting effect on the sequence. So, yeah, this next one is more greenseer stuff because, as you say, he is now he's flashing back and remembering stuff.
Yeah, he remembers the feast for King Robert in the same hall. So it's almost as if he's sitting in the same chair, just recalling the past like a greenseer can. So, he remembers exactly what happened that night in that same location, almost as if he's just, rewound to that moment like a greenseer can through the eyes of the trees. So, yeah, very greenseer king, green king, Garth figure almost. Yeah.
Summer still reigned then, and this is like the harvest feast. So this is the end of summer that they're marking.
Yes. Yep,
so then it says, at the foot of the hall, the doors opened and a gust of cold air made the torches flame brighter for an instant. It's a little ice and fire symbolism. And of course, they then swear by ice and fire to Bran a second later. They reenact the pact that the Marsh King pledged to the Starks way back in the day. It would have been Rickard Stark, who led the armies down into the neck. To Winterfell we pledge the faith of Greywater, hearth and heart and harvest. We yield up to you. Our swords and spears and arrows are yours to command. Grant mercy to our weak, etc., 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 and we shall never fail you. I swear it by earth and water. I swear it by bronze and iron. We swear it by ice and fire. And Bran, not even sure what he's supposed to say, comes up with the right benediction. He says, may your winters be short and your summers bountiful. I'm Brandon Stark. So,
yeah. It makes me think even back to the pact we hear in the Age of Heroes, because it's the end of summer, then we have this gust of cold air arrive, and then we have this symbolic first man, bronze and iron, and a symbolic forest, swearing a pact. And then the Green King says to him, may your winters be short. It's like, yeah, well, I'll grant you a shorter winter and a longer summer because you've said this pact to us. It's interesting also that the Marsh King swore by ice and fire to the Stark of Winterfell when they went under their reign. Why is he swearing it by ice and fire?
I took it to be just like those are the ancient words that everyone else has forgotten.
Yeah, yep, fair enough.
That's probably the words of the original pact. And they, when Dany's creating Drogo's pyre, they lay the wood east to west, sunrise to sunset, north to south, ice to fire. So it's just a way of talking about the cardinal directions and the primal elements.
Yeah. The unity and magic and unity.
But I think you're right. This is a long night sequence here. So we've just sworn a pact with the green people. The children are making a pact with the Starks, and then winter blows in, and it says, much later, after all the sweets had been served and washed down with gallons of summer wine, so the summer wine has been consumed. The food was cleared, the tables shoved back against the walls to make room for the dancing, the music grew wilder. Hothar, by the way, is another form of Other. Hodor's name, same name. Well, so this is a Hodor parallel character, and he brings forth a curved war horn banded in silver. When the singer reached the part in the night that ended where the Night's Watch rose forth to meet the others, on the battle for the dawn, he blew a blast that set all the dogs to barking. So that, and then Morzumber is on his feet. That's a giant's waking in the earth because Morzumber is a giant. And so this seems like a long night sequence that's happening. And then right after that, Bran wargs out some more. He goes back to his room in the darkness. The darkness covers him like a soft, familiar blanket. Same language as in Bloodraven's cave. The faint sound of music drifted through his shuttered window. And then he drifts off thinking about, all of a sudden, Arthur Dayne and how he fought with Dawn, forged from the heart of a fallen star, and he was the sword of the morning. And he goes to sleep with his head full of knights in gleaming armor, fighting with swords that shone like starfire. And this is right after, again, the last hero has been referenced in the War for the Dawn. Now we're thinking about Arthur Dayne and the Sword Dawn. And then he falls asleep, goes right back to the Godswood, into his wolf. So this is kind of like the battle for Winterfell here, where it's like he's needed in the Godswood, he's warging into his wolf, and we see the last hero fighting with Dawn. It's kind of all happening here, isn't it?
Yeah. I'd never looked at this chapter that way, but now that you pointed out,
and I think
very clear references.
There was one where he's drinking some of the, I forgot to point it out, but obviously he's drinking he's drinking red wine in an oaken seat of his father's. In the future, he sits in the weirwood seat of many, greenseers, some of which will be his ancestors, and he is tasting the blood that is being sacrificed to the heart tree in the Godswood. And so that is very much a parallel where, again, Bran is like Fenrir. He's always drinking the blood and consuming. Fenrir Bran. And here is the sacrifice that Bran is on the other end drinking. So this is a wolf tree. That's why it's the wolf's wood all around Winterfell, the wolf's wood. And that's why we see the trees trying to scratch and claw at the moon. Well, it's Skull and Hati, the wolves, who eat the moon and sun to start Ragnarok. But and in fact, it actually happens in the wolf's wood. Arya sees the trees scratching at the face of the moon. I've got that quote locked and loaded for later. But so Bran is the wolf in the wood drinking all this blood. And so that brings us to Underground River Theory, which is going to bring us to Narnia. So we're near the end. Underground River Theory. So you guys have heard this before. There is a river in Bloodraven's cave. It says, men should not go wandering in this place. Leaf warned them, the river you hear is swift and black and flows down to a sunless sea, and there are passages that go even deeper, bottomless pits and sudden shafts, forgotten ways that lead to the very center of the earth. Even my people have not explored them all, and we've lived for 1,000 of your man years. So there's a river down there, and they go down and explore it. Okay, so one day Mira and Jojen decided they wanted to go see the river.
One day Mira and Jojen decided to go see the river, despite Leaf's cautions. I want to come too, Bran said. Mira gave him a mournful look. The river was 600 feet below, deep stone steps and twisty passages, she explained, and the last part required climbing down a rope. Hodor could never make the climb with you on his back. I'm sorry, Bran. But after they were gone, he slipped inside Hodor's skin and followed them. No one ever knew when he was wearing Hodor's skin. Bran only had to smile, do as he was told, and mutter Hodor from time to time, and he could follow Mira and Jojen, grinning happily without anyone suspecting it was really him. He often tagged along whether he wanted or not. In the end, the reeds were glad he came. Jojen made it down the rope easily enough, but after Mira caught a blind white fish with her frog spear, and it was time to climb back up, his arms began to tremble, and he could not make it to the top. They had to tie the rope around him and let Hodor haul him up. Hodor, he grunted every time he gave a pull. Hodor, Hodor, Hodor.
So a few things I want to point out. One, the switching of the eye. Okay, so he's saying he wanted to come, like Bran is asking, and Mira's like, no, Bran, you can't come. And then Bran says he could follow Mira and Jojen, grinning happily without anyone suspecting. He often tagged along whether he was wanted or not. So it's like, who's tagging along? Hodor is tagging along, but Bran is the one who's wanted or not. So it's just sort of slipping back and forth.
Yeah.
And then he says, Hodor, they had to tie a rope around him and let Hodor haul him up. So here Hodor is a third person. And then Hodor, he grunted every time he gave a pull. That's Bran.
Yeah.
So there's really some funny identity slippage going on here. And I also want to point out that
George writes Bran so well as this young boy who has become someone else, but slips, like you said, in and out of, who am I? Am I him? Is he himself? So it's just, interesting.
So they say Hodor could never make the climb with you on his back, but then they show Hodor pulling Jojen up by a rope. So the theory we're wrestling with here is, if Hodor's going to hold the door at the Nightfort, how are they getting out of the cave and getting back there? The theory is that there is either a passage in the caverns, or they're going to make a boat out of weirwood bark and reeds and branches and things which are in the cave, and skins, because Mira knows how to make those kind of boats. And then they're going to sail the boat on the underground river back under the wall, maybe all the way to Winterfell, maybe to the Nightfort, and they're going to come up the well. They're going to be in that water at the bottom of the well, or something like that. So what's interesting here is that first they say, oh yeah, well, Hodor couldn't get down there with Bran on his back, but Hodor could lower Bran down with a rope and then climb down. They've just shown us that that's possible.
Yep. Absolutely. No, the skin boat theory makes a lot of sense. Having Mira there and knowing and setting up the fact that she can build these boats, it makes a lot of sense that they would use that to escape, you know.
And they've got skins and they've got wood. That's all you need. So listen to the description of Bran's throne. The singers made Bran a throne of his own, like the one Brynden sat on, white weirwood flecked with red, dead branches woven through living roots. They placed it in the great cavern by the abyss, where the black air echoed to the sound of the running water far below. Of soft gray moss they made his seat. Once he had been lowered into place, they covered him with warm furs. Fur is a skin with the fur still on it. So, yes, they have skins down there. They have dead wood down there. So they literally can make a skin boat. It's right there. And it's all the ingredients for the boat are in Bran's throne, and the thrones are like weirwood ships. So if she builds a boat, it's going to be a weirwood boat, because those are the dead branches they have down there. So this is the Grey King and the Mermaid Wife making a weirwood ship, and Bran gets to captain the ship just like he wanted to earlier when he was saying, oh, you know, can a cripple ever be captain of a ship? And it's like, maybe. Maybe.
Yeah, that's really good.
Now, baby Moses was smuggled in a reed boat, and Bran, you could draw some parallels there. I'm not going to get lost in it, but maybe Mira Reed is going to make a boat to smuggle Bran. Okay, reed boat.
Yep.
Huh?
Perfect.
Then the last thing is King Bran is always sailing places. After all, in Welsh and Irish myth, he's always sailing. So why wouldn't they take a boat back home? Okay?
Makes a lot of sense.
It really does. And I guess they could go through caverns. They could just walk through caves and end up Gorn's Way under the wall. But I think the boat, the river makes more sense. Less likely to get lost. And it just, for sake of symbolism, it just seems.
It also makes more sense thematically. You know, Bran's just learnt how to navigate the rivers of time as well. So to be able to navigate the rivers back is what he's doing within the Weirwoods and in the story as well.
Yeah. So shout out to Quinn's ideas. We came up with that one together while doing Winds of Winter predictions, if I recall correctly. So yeah, that's the new one, a new wrinkle I found for that one. Thinking about the Grey King and the Weirwood boat, I was like, oh, it'll be a Weirwood and the skin boat's right there. They could just take his throne and turn it into a damn boat. So the Silver Chair is a Narnia story, under 6 hours on audiobook. I'm halfway through it. I started it last night. They really are short. So check it out in your free time. Some great stuff. Yeah. So King Caspian, Voyage of the Dawn Treader is one of the stories that most people remember the most, with Reepicheep, and they sail to the end of the world, and they go to all these strange islands and stuff. The invisible one-footed hopping things and stuff. That was Caspian. That was Prince Caspian who was sailing that ship, okay? And Eustace became friends with Caspian on that voyage. So the Silver Chair jumps forward in Narnia time, where Caspian is now old. And Eustace is only a year older because he's from the real world. Time passes differently. So Caspian is old. The problem is that his heir, Rilian, disappeared 10 years ago. There was a green snake that bit his mother in the garden one day, and his mother died. And then he sought after the snake, couldn't find it. And then so years go by, and Rilian turns us into some quest to find the snake, and eventually he disappears. And so he's been gone for 10 years. Aslan brings Eustace and Jill back to Narnia. Eustace back to Narnia. Jill Pole, it is her first time in Narnia. In any case, they are brought to Narnia on a quest to find Rilian. So, their companion is Puddleglum. Puddleglum is called a marshwiggle, and he's this tall, gangly, kind of plant-like person who is very glum. His name is Puddleglum, and he's always seeing negatives. Oh, it'll probably rain, and oh, well, you probably won't like the food, and if you do, it'll make you sick, and like, he's comically glum. That's his bit. And what the author is doing is that he's getting you to ignore his glumness, so that when he starts giving accurate warnings, the kids are like, that's just Puddleglum. But he is a glum character from the marsh with who's a guide and has extra knowledge of the land. Like, this is Jojen. It's so Jojen, it's not even funny.
Yep.
And so so he's their guide. They meet the Lady of the Green Kirtle when they are on their way to the quest. They're right as they're entering the land of the giants. They cross this bridge. The Lady of the Green Kirtle, she's a beautiful green woman, and she has a silent black knight in black armor who is with her. Now, The Lady of the Green Kirtle, this turns out to be the evil witch of the story. She is the same as the Green Serpent. The knight in the black armor next to her is Rillian. He's enchanted, so he can't say anything, and he's only in his right mind some of the time, at night. During the day, he cannot say anything, and he is this silent knight, okay? Spoilers for Silver Chair. The Lady of the Green Kirtle tricks Eustace and Jill to go to the castle of the Gentle Giants, where they'll have a nice warm fire and food for you. And they're journeying north, so they're getting progressively hungrier and colder and more ragged. And so they hear, this castle of the Gentle Giants that are going to treat them begins to take over their minds as they go. And they miss the signs they're supposed to be looking for that Aslan gave. And they come to this castle. They're not Gentle Giants. They're going to eat the kids, and the Lady of the Green Kirtle has sent them there to be eaten so that they don't find Prince Rillian, because her plot is to use the enchanted Rillian to claim the throne of Narnia. Once Caspian dies, Rillian is the heir. She can produce him, but she controls him. So that's her plot. And she's trying to send these kids to get eaten because they're a nuisance. So this is how she's going to take care of them. Now, they don't get eaten, of course. They escape. They fall under the city, and they end up in Underland. They fall down a long chute of some kind. It's not important. They end up under the city. And Underland is an underworld. There's a whole place, and there's gnomes down there. Father Time is down there. It's, as an aside, it's this giant man sleeping in a cavern, giving off a faint silvery light. He's Father Time, and he's sleeping, because that's where he is. He's in Underland. He used to be a king of Narnia, they say, but he's going to sleep until the last battle. More on him in a moment. So they find Rillian, but they find him as the Black Knight, and he can now talk, but he is not in his right mind, and he's bewitched. And so he's saying, every night I go crazy, and so I have to be tied to this chair or else I'll hurt people that I love. But other than that, I'm doing pretty good. And the nice green lady's down here and stuff. And so he has them. He's like, okay, well, it's nighttime. You got to tie me to the chair. So they tie him to the chair. But then his ravings turn out to be, help! I'm imprisoned by the Green Lady. I'm really Rillian. Let me out. And he commands them to free him by the name of Aslan. And this is one of the signs that they're looking for. So they're like, we should let him out. And they do. And he destroys the chair. Then the Green Lady appears, and she tries to warp reality and convince them all that Aslan isn't real and Narnia doesn't exist and all this stuff. And she almost wins, but Puddleglum shatters her illusion spell somehow. And then she turns into the Green Serpent. And then Rillian slays her with the kids' help. And so after she slays her, the gnomes are freed from their enchantment, and they are grateful. And they're going to go back down further into Underland, where they are from. But before they do, they show the kids the way home. And this is the really important part. There's some other parallels I'll point out, but this is the big thing. The way home turns out to be an underground cavern. The lady has had the gnomes digging underground all the way back to Narnia. And this is how she popped up in the garden as the serpent and bit Rillian's mother and then left or something. So there's this underground tunnel, and they travel back the whole way to Narnia and Cair Paravel in the tunnel and pop back out in the garden. So
perfect.
There's a few things here. Okay, Puddleglum is Jojen, like I said. We've got the chair that imprisons people is obviously a lot like the Weirwood Thrones that Bran has to, again, shut down. He's got to destroy the throne so that people can't use this magic anymore, kind of in the way that Rillian has to destroy the Silver Chair. The Weirwoods are silent. The night is silent. We have many silent nights in the story, etc. This could be a little bit about a gender flip if it's Nissa Nissa who's imprisoned ultimately in the Weirwood net. There's not a green lady witch, in Ice and Fire. It's not a perfect parallel, but there is a Night's Queen, and she might be part of the enchanting. The main thing is the underground reference back to Winterfell. There was a couple other things too. But yeah, there was, let's see. So there's this quote from Old Nan. This is Arya saying, she remembered a story Old Nan had told once about a man imprisoned in a dark castle by evil giants. He was brave and smart, and he tricked the giants and escaped, but no sooner than he was outside the castle than the others took him and drank his hot red blood. This kind of sounds like The Last Hero, because we know the others are chasing the last hero. I don't know what the castle is, maybe the Nightfort or something. This has always been a weird nursery rhyme that seems disconnected from everything, but it sounds a lot like Rillian being imprisoned under a giant's castle, who then escapes. And he's not eaten by the others, but just something I thought of. I mentioned Father Time, and if you have any doubt that George is drawing from this, you will not have doubt after I read this. So he once ruled a kingdom in Overland. Nobody knows what it is, and he is asleep down there. So he is put to sleep in the cavern along with birds, bats, lizards, and dragons, and he dreams of the things that are going on in the overworld, kind of like, Bloodraven or the other greenseers. And now here's the big thing. At the last battle, Aslan wakes him up, and Aslan says when he lay dreaming his name was Time. Now that he is awake, he will have a new one. And when he wakes up, here's the description. Then the great giant raised a horn to his mouth. They could see this by the change of the black shape he made against the stars. After that, quite a bit later, because sound travels so slowly, they heard the sound of the horn, high and terrible, yet of a strange, deadly beauty. Immediately the sky became full of shooting stars. Even one shooting star is a fine thing to see, but these were dozens, and then scores, and then hundreds, till it was like a silver rain, and it went on and on. This is at the last battle. At the sound of the horn, all the creatures of the Narnian world raced for dear life to the stable to join or reject Aslan. So this is like a meteor shower you have to hide from. Father Time then destroys Narnia's massive dying red sun by squeezing it like an orange in his hand, bringing instant darkness, and what became after him is unknown. And I don't remember what happens after that because I haven't read The Last Battle in a long time. Yeah, there you go. Wow. I knew I would surprise you with something. I saved something for you, Eldric, didn't I? You like that? So there's a giant blowing a horn that causes a star apocalypse, and then the sun is crushed like a blood orange.
And he's even seems to draw on the king asleep beneath the mountain motif that occurs through history as well. That sleeping giant beneath the earth. So does he wake up does that horn wake him, or how does he wake?
I'm not sure how he wakes. I think Aslan calls his name. That's how he's woken. And then he blows the horn.
At the battle for the door. Yeah. Okay. That's really interesting. Yeah. Yeah. We see that motif of the sleeping ancient hero or ancient figure sleeping beneath mountains and ready to reawaken at a final battle. That plays out through real world myth, like Frederick Barbarossa and Ogier the Dane and King Arthur, even on Avalon, waiting to sleep till he rises again. And there you go. I hadn't heard that. Yeah. Wow.
And of course, this is at a certain point, all these authors are working with, the same mythemes and stuff and doing their own variations. And so it's hard to say one person got this from another person. But I think there's enough here in this story where you can say that George definitely read this and was inspired by it. There's a lot. Yeah. And I think the most important thing here is this idea of the route back home. It's too delicious when it's already seemingly set up in ice and fire. And then I thought of Silver Chair, because this is the one I remember the most. And because I just love underground stuff. It's so cool. It's the secret world underground. And it's like, man, there it is. Because Bran is the prince, so it's not a perfect one-to-one. But yeah, I mean, Jill and Eustace, Jojen and Mira, and Puddleglum, it's pretty similar.
It is very similar, yeah. And even I can see down there it says that the giant had a large snowy beard as well. So we've got the snowy beard aspect as well, which is common for an ancient sort of figure. But like you said,
it's thought that he is supposed to depict like a star. A silver light comes from him and no one can figure out where it comes from. And he ends the world of Narnia and destroys the other star. So putting out the sun mirrors how supergiant stars are massive stars near the end of their lifespan. Right. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's good.
End of an age. Here's the BBC Silver Chair. There's Father Time.
And as an Australian, I have to say, shout out to Silver Chair, the band. If anyone hasn't listened to Silver Chair, listen to Silver Chair. They're an Australian 90s, thousands grunge band. They're incredible.
I bonded with Eldric the other day. I was like, yeah, Daniel Johns. I remember. I was 13 or 14 when that album came out, so that was dope shit. There you go. The Silver Chair, the book, with a new little bit of potential evidence for they're going to take a cave home. So not a river. Oh, this is what I was forgetting. There is a sunless sea in Underland. They have to cross it at one point.
By ship? Do they build it? How do they get across?
I forget. I haven't gotten to that point in the book, and the summary doesn't say. But there is a sunless sea under there, and they do have to cross it. So that too is similar. Okay, and so the last thing I will say about this is Astro Bran. This is the last Bran theory for the iceberg. I have mentioned this a couple times. This is Ravenous Reader's thing. The idea is that Bran will either skin change the comet, quote unquote, or you might say steer the comet, somehow reach into the heavens and mess with the heavenly bodies. This is an idea that is implied in the story a couple of different ways. So the first one is the gargoyle thing. Bran sat astride the gargoyle, tightened his legs around it, and swung himself around upside down. He hung by his legs and slowly stretched his head down toward the window. This is Jaime and Cersei in the room here. The world looked strange upside down. A courtyard swam dizzily below him, its stones still wet with melted snow. So the gargoyle, again, has fiery eyes in Bran's vision. So it seems like a pretty obvious stone, dragon, stone, moon, meteor symbol. Bran is riding it like a horse. He's even hanging off the side like a Dothraki doing a one of those charges or whatever. And then the line, the world looked strange upside down, makes it sound like he's flying way high in space and can see the world below him. So this has been the genesis of this theory. Like, oh, is Bran going to ride a dragon? Is he going to skin change a dragon? That was the first idea. His psychic power, maybe the one that Euron has or is whited, maybe Bran can neutralize it with psychic power or something like that. Okay. But then Ravenous Reader's like, well, maybe they're talking about comets, not dragons. Maybe Bran's going to ride the comet in some sense. Okay. Or one of the meteors, or try to. Like, he's maybe trying to steer it away from the planet. Maybe he fails because it does need to hit the planet, but maybe he tries and fails or something. So check this out. This is Dany thinking about touching the comet in conjunction with the green dragon, which is generally speaking a greenseer symbol. Rhaegal unfolded green wings to flap and flutter a half foot before thumping back to the carpet. When he landed, his tail lashed back and forth in fury, and he raised his head and screamed. If I had wings, I would want to fly too, Dany thought. The Targaryens of old had ridden upon dragonback when they went to war. She tried to imagine what it would be like to straddle a dragon's neck and soar high into the air. It would be like standing on a mountaintop, only better. The whole world would be spread out below. If I flew high enough, I could even see the seven kingdoms and reach up and touch the comet. So it's like, can people touch the comet? This is a question that we've been asking since I came up with moon meteor theory. It's like, well, did Azor Ahai did he call the comet? Did he steer it? Did he know? Did he foresee the collision, in the future, and so he timed his murder ritual to it, or did he actually call something from the Oort cloud? We don't know. Yeah. It's up to George. It's not clear, really.
But the idea of being able to reach out and touch it though implies some sort of control potentially, like you said.
Then there's the Undying. When they're trying to look like the great empire of the Dawn Wizards to Dany, they're like, oh, yes, we sent the comet to show you the way. We've been waiting for you for 1,000 years. So it's like, oh, can magicians send comets?
Yeah.
It's implied.
It is, yep.
So the two ways that you can touch a comet seem to be either through the weirwoods or through one of the horns. That's implied several different ways, and that's kind of as far as I've ever been able to take this. So check out this Arya quote. She slashed at birch leaves, and this is Harrenhal Godswood. She's up in the kingdom of the leaves, doing her squirrel thing, till the splintery point of the broken broomstick was green and sticky. So she has a green wooden sword. Sir Gregor, she breathed. Oh, green and sticky, like she's been killing green men, maybe. Like their green blood's all over it. Sir Gregor, she breathed. Okay, she spun and leapt and balanced on the balls of her feet, darting this way and that, knocking pine cones flying. Yeah, she's attacking the tree. Sir Ilian, Sir Mer. Okay, the bole of an oak loomed before her, and she lunged to drive her point through it, grunting. Joffrey, who's the Sun King. So she's killing the Oak King here. Her arms and legs were dappled by sunlight and the shadow of leaves, which gives her child of the forest symbolism. So this is a weird scene. She's like attacking the tree. A sheen of sweat covered her skin by the time she paused. The heel of her right foot was bloody where she'd skinned it, so she stood one-legged before the heart tree and raised her sword in salute. Valor Morghulis, she told the old gods of the north. So she's actually like the hanged man with the one leg. Only the hanged man's upside down with one leg, but she is
Yep.
saluting the tree, and the hanged man's hanging on the tree. So it seems similar to me.
Even the one-legged stance is a sort of Zen pose in a way as well, with that Zen aspect of being a greenseer. Yeah.
It definitely reflects good balance. And then so as she crossed the yard to the bathhouse, she spied a raven circling down toward the rookery and wondered where it had come from and what message it carried. Might be it's from Robb, come to say it wasn't true about Bran and Rickon being dead. She chewed on her lip, hoping, if I had wings, so that just like the Dany passage, if I had wings, if I could fly back to Winterfell and see for myself if Bran and Rickon were alive. And if it was true that they were dead, I would just fly away, fly up past the moon and the shining stars and see all the things in Old Nan's stories, dragons and sea monsters and the Titan of Braavos, and maybe I wouldn't ever fly back unless I wanted to.
Mm-mm.
So she is in the God's Wood, interfacing with the Weirwood tree, thinking about Bran being dead, thinking about having wings, and then she's flying up into the stars and seeing dragons and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
can you Weirwood fly to the stars up in space? I don't know. Bran may have already done it. So Bran looked down and felt his insides turn to water. The ground was rushing up at him now. The whole world was spread out below him, a tapestry of white and brown and green. He could see everything so clearly that for a moment he forgot to be afraid. He could see the whole realm and everyone in it. He saw Winterfell as the eagles see it. The tall towers looking squat and stubbly from above. The castle walls just lines in the dirt. And Maester Luwin is looking at the comet through the polished tube. So, Ravenous Reader interprets this as Bran being the comet. Bran is flying over Westeros. He's skin-changing the comet. In this, literally, he's looking through the eyes of the comet, looking down on Westeros and seeing all this stuff. So instead of seeing out of the heart tree face, he's seeing out of the comet. That's what Ravenous Reader is proposing. And so he saw Maester Luwin on the balcony studying the sky through a polished bronze tube and frowning as he made notes in a book. Maester Luwin is looking at the comet. We see that in a scene later in this book where they come up to Luwin and he's looking at the comet through the tube. Yep. So that's what Bran is. Then he sees Robb, he sees Hodor. At the heart of the Godswood, the great white weirwood brooded over its reflection in the black pool, its leaves rustling in a chill wind. When it felt Bran watching, it lifted its eyes from the still waters and stared back at him knowingly. That's interesting since the weirwood eyes never really move or anything, but here it is seeing Bran and acknowledging him flying. Then he looks east. He sees a galley racing and it sees Catelyn on there, storm gathering, blah, blah, blah. He looks south and saw the great blue-green rush of the Trident. And then he sees the giant with nothing but darkness and thick black blood behind the visor. In the silver chair, when they first see the Black Knight, they sit there and muse about what's under there. And Jill's like, maybe if you open it, there's nothing. It'll just be the darkness. So I don't know if that's where George got it, but it is the same thing. Then he lifted his eyes and saw clear across the narrow sea to the free cities, to the green Dothraki Sea and beyond, to Vace Dothrak under its mountain, to the fabled lands of the Jade Sea, to a shy by the shadow where dragons stirred beneath the sunrise. So you can see all the way across the world here. Finally, he looked north. He saw the wall shining like blue crystal. He looked past the wall. He sees the heart of winter, the curtain of light, and all that. So Ravenous Reader says he's looking out through the comet here. I mean, you could sort of see it.
You can, for sure. Absolutely. And if
either
nothing
that
else,
or he's just flying.
Vaguely.
Yeah.
And like they can. I wonder whether it's symbolic as well of Bran being called as a version of Lightbringer and as a symbolic comet, being called forth to be a Lightbringer, to be a hero. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. It's very possible. I can't see why you wouldn't be able to.
There's also it gets into the stone thing. Like, oh, well, can you see out of a stone face? Well, we see the stone faces in the Rainwood underground, and the stone statues and
turn to stone. Yeah, we even hear that Leaf says that the spirits of the dead can pass into the trees and into the stones. So,
rocks and stones.
Yeah. So it's very likely you could skin change into a comet, into stone. Yeah, for sure.
I wouldn't know if we'll call it likely, but it's theoretically plausible. It's not insane.
Yeah.
I'll give it that
I'd
at least.
that.
Then, real quickly, when he flies his first raven in Bloodraven's cave, he crashes it into the wall. And this is, I do think that the meteor that comes is going to hit the wall. That is heavily foreshadowed in John's chapter, where the moon is calling down snow to him with the raven's voice. Then he picks up his white feather pillow and throws it at the raven, but hits the wall, and it explodes in a flurry of feathers, as if a bird has just exploded. So it's like, the moon, which has the raven voice, is going to hit the wall and create a big snow flurry, I think. And so here we have Bran crashing a raven into a wall.
Yeah, and he drove it there himself, which the greenseers, if anyone can, call forth the comet and steer it. That's exactly what they would be doing. Yeah.
Raven's okay, though. Just good news. He's all right.
We're all good.
Before long, they were flying around the cavern, weaving through the long stone teeth that hung down from the ceiling. So it's almost like they're flying through the jaws of a dragon, the long stone teeth. It's just another one where it's like, is he flying on the dragon? Is he flying around the dragons? Is he skin changing a dragon? I'm not sure, but
yeah. So
then here, real quick, are the scenes with trees attacking the moon or the sky. So Raven Tree, a weirwood of colossal size whose upper branches could be seen from leagues away like bony fingers scratching at the sky. The Nightfort weirwood. Pale moonlight slanted through the hole in the dome, painting the branches of the weirwood as they strained up toward the roof. It looked as if the tree were trying to catch the moon and drag it down into the well. And earlier, it was reaching for the sun. No dragging down, but it was reaching for it. So it's reaching for the sky, scratching at the sky, sun and moon, trees all doing this. Again, Wolfswood, Nightfort. Oh, here's the Wolfswood one. The Deepwood was aptly named. The trees were huge and dark, somehow threatening. Their limbs wove through one another and creaked with every breath of wind, and their higher branches scratched at the face of the moon. Why do the trees keep trying to attack the moon? Can you use the trees to attack the moon? Going back to Symeon's star eyes, with the moon sickle. Can you use the world tree to make the moon a weapon?
Bring the moon down,
And then there's this one. They had no moon to guide them home. What happened to the moon? Is it gone? And only now and then a patch of stars. The world was black and white and still. Jon glimpsed the red wanderer above, watching them through the leafless branches of the great trees as they made their way beneath. So now the comet is looking through the weirwoods at Jon. Or maybe Azor Ahai is looking at Jon. Or, I don't know. It's weird language. What do you make of that one?
I think it feels like Azor Ahai being that red wanderer, that red thief, sort of watching through the eyes of the trees, watching through the trees. Yeah.
That's how I had always interpreted it. And there's also the one with Cold Hands when he rescues Sam. The tree canopy starts to shimmer and the starlight shimmers, and he's like, oh, there's thousands of ravens on the branches, and they start. So the ravens are like meteor symbols. The starlight is stirring with the leaves, and then the ravens descend like a storm of black meteors, and they start attacking.
Yeah, just thinking out loud when we're thinking of all these trees dragging the moon down into the well, dragging the moon down, we think of the night of the bloody gate and the bloody gate itself. There's a house Royce, the second house Royce. Yeah, the gates of the moon. We have that. Oh, that's a different gate.
Same symbol, just repeated. Yeah,
but it is. Yeah, their sigil is literally the moon behind a gate. The gate, so it's almost like pulling the moon down and gating the moon, like locking the moon down into Earth. Yeah.
The house winch has the bloody moon, and then the implication of the word winch is like something you pull with a winch.
Pulls it down.
Pull the moon down, yeah. So then there's the Hammerhorn Keep. So same language. And this is Aeron thinking about a storm is coming such as these isles have never known, thinking about Euron. It was long after dark by the time the priest espied the spiky iron battlements of the Hammerhorn clawing at the crescent moon. So they dropped the keep. So it's just the Hammerhorn clawing at the crescent moon with its iron spikes. So it's like, oh, does the horn call the hammer of the waters, which is really a piece of broken moon? Well, yes, perhaps so. So this is why I say there's two things. And then Dragonbinder, when Euron blows it, it sounds like Nissa Nissa's scream that broke the moon. But it's also like a shivering hot scream, and it's like a sword thrust that splits the air. So it's a screaming sword like Widow's Wail. So there's a lot of stuff that likens Dragonbinder to the comet that broke the moon, and also Nissa Nissa's scream that broke the moon. So Dragonbinder might be able to break the moon, and that's what Hammerhorn Keep says. So what are we doing? Does the weirwood have to blow the horn? We put the horn up to the weirwood's mouth, and then what's happening here? I can't figure out how we break the moon. Is it the horn or the trees, Eldric?
They seem tied together. The horn and the trees seem tied together in a way. I've always pictured Jon as being the horn blower, and Jon blowing the horn of winter, Dany blowing the Dragonbinder horn. That unity together, that ice and fire at the same time. And I think it ties in. I tend to think that Bran's the third head of the dragon, the symbolic dragon, the sort of green aspect of that trident. And he might have to be within the trees when these horns are blown or something along those lines, because the trees, the horns, the hammer of the waters all seem to be tied together somehow. And it's, sort of passing that out is the hard part. But they're definitely tied together, especially through the hammer horn, clawing at the crescent moon. Yeah.
In the same way the trees are, and it's a tower.
Yes.
Same thing, same image.
And there's a storm coming. There's a storm coming to these isles, and it's
Euron's storm, and he is the Bloodstone Emperor who's going to rise from the graves and charnel pits as a new death god when the Red Star comes.
Yep. It's all tied. Trying to pass it out is very hard, but yeah.
And then you look at that Narnia bit, the horn sound, I forgot to harp on this, but the horn sounds a lot like Dragonbinder. The sound goes on and on. It's high and terrible. And then
you notice that.
The stars start falling. And the whole point about Dragonbinder is it might be able to pull down falling stars.
Yeah, bind the symbolic dragon comets, symbolic dragons to your will. Yeah, it's all there.
And I do think there is foreshadowing for Jon blowing the real Horn of Winter, which is the one that Mance found that Mel tried to burn. It didn't burn because you can't burn that. And it's around. And Jon has the torques from Tormund that match that horn, which designates him as the horn blower, just as Dany has the torque that matches Dragonbinder. So I do think they are both going to blow those horns. I didn't think about them accidentally blowing them at the same time from around the world, though. Maybe that's what will happen.
I didn't know if it was when they came together or something in the end at Winterfell, or when they're eventually fighting together alongside each other. You have the ice blowing the winter horn,
I just think we need to call the comet sooner than that. And I think the comet's going to come back while Jon's dead or as he's resurrecting. So I don't know. Yeah, that doesn't really quite work. I have to figure it out.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But just the unity
Jon
of
resurrects and blows the horn, that would work. His resurrection just needs to be tied to the end of the world. That's what the foreshadowing is. So it's hard to say exactly. All right. Well, guys, that is the Bran Mythology Iceberg. A couple theories in there. But hopefully you understand Bran's character more and why he's going to be a king, because I think we explained it in there somewhere.
A little bit.
And
some new stuff there. Really interesting stuff. Thanks for having me on, Dave. It was amazing, man.
So thanks, guys. And all right, guys. Well, thank you for accompanying me for these 4 hours, Eldric. I appreciate you. You've been a great wingman. And I think we did it. I think we explained this stuff pretty well. It felt pretty organized and orderly. And I've definitely never gone that deep on Bran the Blessed or the Voyage of Bran or any of that stuff. So
that was really good. Appreciate having me on, man. And thanks everyone for checking us out. And yeah, appreciate it.